Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's board meeting. It's July 28th, and it is now 5:03 p.m. And we're going to call this meeting into order. I'd like to start off with the flag salute, and I'm going to ask the birthday girl, Pam, to please lead us. Did you think you'd get away with it being your birthday on a board meeting? No.
All right, please stand.
Yep.
Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin.
I
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mrs. Kroshauer, for leading us today's flag salute, and happy birthday, and thank you for celebrating with us together.
Thank you.
Very welcome. Okay, so we're going to move forward.
I'll move
Our
approval
agenda?
of the agenda, but I want to pull item 13A.
I'll second.
Thank you for that. Just for those watching, we were going to do the public comment soon after this period. Actually, yes. So let's see. All those in favor, please. Anybody else pulling? I should ask. Nobody else is pulling? Okay. Ms. Marcus, I cannot hear you.
Not on the agenda.
Okay.
Can I actually pull item 12D?
Who's speaking, please?
This is Jonathan.
Student board member.
Hi, Jonathan. I didn't see you. Thank you. Okay. Okay, Mr. Margo, you made the motion. Did you want to modify your motion?
No, I seconded it, Mrs.
Oh.
Walker made the motion.
Who wants to modify the motion before
I'll
we
modify
approve?
the motion. Approval of agenda with the exception of item 13A and 12D.
I'll agree to that second, but can I ask a question? Are you, Yoni, are you trying to pull it completely from the agenda, or are you pulling it for discussion reasons?
I'm pulling it for discussion reasons.
Okay.
We don't, then you can leave it. It's there for discussion
It's
reasons.
there for discussion.
Oh,
Okay, that's okay.
So-
Thank you. So it's not necessary to pull it just because it's a discussion item. So,
Okay, my bad.
but I know it's confusing. I get confused the same way, so I'm glad I'm not the only one. So thank you for clarifying that, Mr.
Yes,
Brian.
Okay,
Okay, let's
so
move
I
on.
will modify
All
it
those-
again. Approval of the agenda, but I'm pulling item 13A.
Okay, great. All those in favor, Mr. Margot,
Aye.
Mr. Spitz,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker-Schuman,
Yes.
Mrs. Marcus.
I need clarification before I vote on that. Did you say you're pulling 13A from the discussion, Mr.
Yes.
Schuman, or you're taking it
Yeah,
out?
she pulled it. She pulled it, Mrs. Marcus.
Thank you.
So is that a yes?
No.
Okay, so I'm a yes. And that's 4-1. Mrs. Marcus, did you want to pull something from the agenda?
No, I'm sorry about the consent. I was referring, we haven't done the consent. That was pulling from the consent.
Okay. Okay, so we're gonna, okay, so the agenda is now approved. We are going to now go to public hearing. Oh, before we do that, Dr. Breggy, is there a report from closed?
Yes. The board has voted 5-0 to pass student settlement 0AH 202002080, and it's actually OAH number 13682, also 5-0 in favor.
Okay, thank you for that report. We are now going to move to public comment. So thank you for that. Let's see here. Mr. Margo, do you want to start off with public comment? Then we'll go to Mr. Spitz, then Mrs. Walker-Schuman, then Mrs. Marcus, and I will be the last. Thank you.
Yep, I'm ready.
Please.
Okay, to the school board. and confusing to see the inhumane push in forcing your teachers in on-site teaching rather than allowing us a choice that could save our lives and protect our families. I wish I could use a lighter tone in addressing you on this matter, but it is apparent that our previous voices have been both censored and ignored. What is your method and process for selecting the letters to be read? All letters must be read and not selectively chosen. The submission form is quite honestly a farce, as some members have chosen to read from letters in their mailboxes. Moreover, in normal settings, all those who choose to publicly speak in person would have been heard. It appears there is an abhorrent abuse of our quarantine situation to selectively read that which best suits the leadership of this district. So if you are looking to be followers of other districts instead of leaders, know that you are taking the time to read all letters. Adding insult to injury is that every public communication on our plans has been truly without any actual plan, but instead a message of waiting to see what other districts do and tons of wording which rehashes what we already know. No doubt we must follow health and safety guidelines put forth, but it is clear that we don't have the leadership to make solid decisions. Instead, it appears that you are afraid to make what you know is the right decision in giving us a choice because you are afraid of a little criticism. Well, that's too bad. It comes with the territory. Do the right thing. There is no evidence and no clear confidence that you can give anyone on our staff that our facilities will be a safe and healthy one. You hopefully have read the testimonies of our teachers describing black soot, faulty elevators, leaky pipes, and poor ventilation, to name just a few. In my block of classrooms directly under the cafeteria, we have had at least 5 consecutive years of broken pipes, both sewage and water, which has damaged equipment and building structure, leaving teachers to vacate their rooms. I have photographed the damage. As my moldy and stained ceiling tiles are removed, I could see decades of previous patching as well as current pipe erosion spanning through rooms 259, 261, 262, 251, 252, 253, and 255. The latest incident was this May in room 251, my computer lab. I was on campus to allow seniors to pick up work. My desks were covered with black sooty particles. At first, I would wipe my desk, believing it was just normal dust from lack of occupancy. The soot would return within minutes. I repeated this process 3 to 4 times and notified both administration and maintenance. Furthermore, the classroom is one of the many that doesn't have any windows and essentially relies upon forced air circulation, which has also been faulty and inconsistent throughout the past 20 years. I have spent in this block of classrooms. Bottom line, if you can't even ensure a macro level safety in things we can see and that which is tangible, what makes you so confident that you can now ensure a safe environment on a microscopic level? This district's track record on these issues doesn't provide much confidence. Is it an absurdity to think that we cannot do the same job while teaching at home? Are you all aware that the ViewSonic displays are not required to do live stream instruction? It became quite obvious in this training that the website and the software download would allow teachers to access to this learning ecosystem from anywhere and without the ViewSonic display. ILC teachers give instruction remotely and they aren't specialists in all content areas. Lastly, you need to remember that our current situation doesn't protect you from having to look us in the face. You have to see us, work with us, and engage with us. Remember, I have kids the same age as some of your kids. Remember this when you are making a life and death decision for us. Are you prepared to take responsibility for the death of your employees? Are you prepared to be haunted by the ghost of those you forced to work on site without a choice? Thank you for your consideration, humanity, and time. Mike Fetterman, parent and teacher. It's dismaying to hear that the district is still insisting teachers not be allowed the choice to teach from home, despite the fact that it's not demonstrably safe and also unnecessary. I yield the balance of my time to Michael Fetterman's letter. Okay, number 3, I teach AP government at the high school, and I beg you to respect staff by giving us the option to teach from home during the pandemic. I have 4 80-plus-year-old grandparents in my everyday life. If you make me come to campus, you risk my life and theirs. Why isn't my family's health as important as the health of Beverly Hills families? I taught every single minute I was allowed during at-home learning. A board member can confirm that, as their student was in my class. My AP scores reflect my efforts. Please don't punish my entire family because of a handful of bad apples who didn't do their job. I was doing mine. Thank you, Catherine Pinku. Number 4, on July 24th, the CDC released a report indicating that about 41% of American adults have at least one health condition that would make them more vulnerable to the effects of COVID-19, a far higher figure than many anticipated. At the same time, COVID-19 death rates continue to rise in 24 states. Dr. Deborah Bricks, coordinator of the Coronavirus Task Force, referred to California, Texas, and Florida as being like 3 New Yorks in terms of the magnitude of their outbreaks. On July 23rd, California experienced its highest single-day number of deaths so far. 150 prominent medical experts, scientists, nurses, and teachers have called on the Trump administration and state governments to shut down the country again. It's clear that COVID-19, far from being under control, is becoming a steadily growing problem. In light of the growing body of evidence that we should restrict in-person contact as much as possible, why is the district still insisting that teachers do their remote broadcasts from school when they could just as easily do them from the safety of their homes? Although a teacher sitting alone in a classroom might seem safe, we have to consider how the teacher gets to that classroom and leaves it through common spaces, some of them enclosed like elevators, that can easily become sources of infection. Even worse are our aging and temperamental ventilation systems. To the extent that they recirculate air, they can spread infection. And in some areas, like the relatively new math science building at the high school, there are no openable windows to use as an alternative source of ventilation. Even if the district wanted to and had the funds, it is unlikely the ventilation systems at all school sites could be sufficiently improved by the beginning of the school year to make them safe under current circumstances. Consequently, the district needs to allow teachers the option of streaming their instruction from home. Doing anything else at this point would be irresponsible. Here's my last letter. Dear board and Ms. Dr. Breggy, I write to you once again as a veteran in Beverly Hills High School and as a 28-year member of this community. Again, I am relieved that you made the decision to keep our students safe by keeping them out of the physical school buildings. You did the right thing. We are now 3 weeks to the start of school. We understand that the MOU has not yet been agreed upon and that the sticking point is from where teachers will be teaching. Please know that the indecision around this issue is incredibly anxiety producing for teachers. We need your support in order to do our best work for kids. We should not spend another minute worrying about this issue. We have too much to do. Even writing yet another letter to this effect is a waste of time. Again, as someone who is immunocompromised, if I am forced by your directive to return to school, I will have no choice but to wear a mask every day from the moment I arrive to the building until I return to my car. I will be forced to teach online wearing a mask. This is no service to my students. Please show compassion and swift action as you prioritize the health and safety of your staff as you have for the students. Thank you, Julie Golder.
Thank you, Mr. Marco. Mr. Spitz.
Okay, I've got two letters to read. First one reads, Dear Board, with much emphasis on safety when we eventually returned to school, I was shocked to learn for the first time via the July 24 board meeting's public comment portion that a Beverly Vista middle school teacher had coronavirus in February and exposed our children. To give some context, by February 6, California already had its first death due to COVID-19. By early March, COVID-19 was declared a pandemic. Based on her letter, Mrs. Crane disclosed that she attended school for approximately 6 days, although she experienced worsening symptoms that she later confirmed were attributable to COVID-19. Despite admitting she had paid leave, Mrs. Crane still decided to come to school for 6 days until it became unbearable to work because she wanted to save her paid time off. While I'm happy to hear she recovered from COVID without major adverse effects, it sounds like keeping paid leave for later personal use was more important for Mrs. Crane than reducing her exposure of a potentially deadly disease to over 1,000 students, BHUSD staff, and their families. This is particularly disappointing, even disturbing, because I understand Mrs. Crane is a scientist and had a career at NASA. With her science background, I'm assuming she understands the ramifications of exposing others to such a highly infectious disease that has no known cure, treatment, or vaccine. Even if she didn't suspect it then, she was admittedly symptomatic, likely contagious, and later confirmed it was COVID-19 while school was still in session. Despite the foregoing, it appears that Mrs. Crane chose to wait until a late summer board meeting to make this disclosure, but the reason had nothing to do with concern for her students. It was used to further support her position that teachers should not return to school due to safety reasons, even though she had potentially endangered the health of many people, including her colleagues she now seeks to protect. I understand Mrs. Crane needs to make the health of her family and herself a priority, but what about her students, our families, the staff at BVMS and their families? And how can she reconcile her almost reckless actions last semester with her stance against returning to school? We want everyone to be safe. but she was trying to make the point that because even she didn't have the common sense to stay at home with pay, despite having COVID-19 symptoms, no one else will. Very few families watch school board meetings, and yet we have yet to hear from the district about this COVID-19 exposure, even though Mrs. Crane admittedly knew well before the school year ended. In his July 8 mail, Dr. Brady acknowledged the district is aware of multiple COVID-19 cases in BHUSD since spring break. Could those be attributable to the BVMS exposure that we don't know about? Maybe, but we will never know. And we will also never know if we could have prevented those additional BHUSD cases with earlier disclosure. Telling us months later, coupled with the rationale for doing so.
Excuse me, Mr. Spitz, that's 3 minutes. I'm sorry to interrupt.
What we know and have known about COVID-19. Our students, families, and community deserve better. Signed, Maya Soloway. And the second letter I have is, Dear President Hacker, Vice President Marcus, and members of the BHUSD Board of Education. As board members, you make decisions for BHUSD each time you meet. I would argue that every decision you make is an important one. Some of the decisions you make, however, fall into the critical category because they are not only consequential, but irreversible. Previously, you gave direction to district administration, the suggestion that your staff work on campus when school resumes in August. This despite the CDC and LA County Public Health suggestions that employees should be allowed to work from home when possible, and their urging of school districts to increase opportunities for employees to do so. The location where staff begins work may not seem like a critical decision, but it most definitely is. If someone on staff is exposed to COVID-19 because they were forced to work on site, that exposure and the long-term health it causes are irreversible. Whatever the perceived benefits are in regards to working on site, they do not outweigh the associated irreversible risk to the health of your staff. On July 6, in an article published by the Infectious Diseases Society of America, a group of 239 scientists from 32 countries published an open letter to the World Health Organization. They argued that the World Health Organization is underestimating the role of airborne transmission of COVID-19. These scientists state that COVID-19 droplets stay suspended in the air, travel farther than previously thought, and linger in an area even when an infected person has left. Imagine for a moment any shared staff bathroom or hallway on any BHUSD campus. The scientists state that the implications of their argument include: 1, social distancing and wearing masks may not be enough to stop the spread of the virus, especially indoors. 2, more importance must be placed on increasing fresh air ventilation in enclosed areas. And 3, air filtering systems are critical in trying to cut down on the risk of contaminated recirculated air. Staff members have previously reported that they work in offices and classrooms with no windows or windows that do not open, and with the antiquated air systems with questionable filter maintenance. Working on site places staff in situations of increased risk of exposure. Working from home eliminates these risks. While I know the MOU is still being negotiated, I am asking the board to make the critical decision to keep your employees safe by giving district administration direction to allow staff the choice as to where they work. Thank you, Janice Hart, BHHS Counselor.
Thank you, Mr. Spitz. Mrs. Walker-Schuman.
So here's the first letter. Dear BHUSD Board of Education, I cannot believe we must fight for an MOU that enables us to stay home, where we do not share a bathroom with so many of our colleagues, where we can breathe fresh air, not the same circulated air from our ancient dilapidated heating and air conditioning as multiple colleagues, and where we do not share the other indoor spaces with multiple people. What on earth are you thinking? Why? So you can monitor us? It would likely be easier and safer for admin and all of us to jump into our synchronous virtual meetings, or heaven forbid, speak to us individually if there are concerns about our performance. It's cowardly to punish all of us when only a few are driving your recalcitrance in allowing teachers a choice, but should not be a shock to us that you would place a few vocal constituents above teacher safety. But in terms of our well-being, our very lives, I did think you would have given us more consideration, especially given the numbers we are seeing in this pandemic. You did talk about teacher safety in study sessions, but actions speak louder than words. You must already know that many of us have underlying conditions that make COVID-19 much more dangerous for us, or that we have young children or elderly/ailing family members at home who need supervision and care. Even if the district were to provide childcare, would you put your young children in a group daycare for 8 hours a day so you can go to work right now with our current COVID-19 numbers? It's impossible to be motivated and focus on being the best teacher we can be when the district shows such utter disrespect and negligence toward its staff. The degree of frustration and anger is palpable amongst us. You are apparently choosing to ignore the most recent LA County health order. Vulnerable employees whose age, those above age 65, and those with chronic health conditions that would place them at high risk of infection are assigned work that can be done from home whenever possible. Employees in this category should discuss any concerns with their healthcare provider or occupational health services to make appropriate decisions on returning to the workplace. Work processes are reconfigured to the extent consistent with academic requirements and student needs to increase opportunities for employees to work from home, end quote. Health screenings have been added for employees entering the school sites as well. This is a bit of a joke, as seeing that anywhere from 40 to 80%, depending on the source and without everyone having been tested, of positive COVID-19 cases are asymptomatic or pre-symptomatic. This is not enough to keep us safe. Be decent, respectful, science and data-driven human beings, and direct your district administration's bargaining team to allow us the flexibility to choose what will be safest for us and our families. Sincerely, Karen Moses, EL Coordinator and ELD Teacher, BHHS. Second letter is, Dear Board members, as we start the year temporarily at home until the governor's guidelines are in place, I ask the following. Number one, teachers teach from classrooms to minimize distractions, and the administration can make sure teachers are teaching effectively. Number two, send parents the class and the student will be in so we can prepare. I know this is not customary, but parents need to figure out pods and childcare. If you want to help us, here it is. Number three, in the MOU, include language that prepares children and teachers to come back to the class so that we don't have to renegotiate another MOU. Vaccine is coming at the end of the year. Number four, hybrid should be considered, at least for elementary, as soon as possible. Our kids are suffering emotionally and socially. That's from Arazu Masaband. This is a letter also. It says, first, I'd like to express our deepest thanks to Dr. Breggy, district staff, and the board for their patience and diligence in what is probably the most serious issue BHUSD has faced in its 84-year history. This global pandemic is an unprecedented challenge that requires clear-headed, out-of-the-box thinking to keep our students, staff, and community safe. So thanks to all of you for rising to the occasion. Here is my question, and I would like to stress that this is of utmost importance to many families, that we receive an unambiguous answer to this today in the board meeting. How does the district plan to implement return to school in Beverly Hills should LA County meet the governor's criteria for reopening in the middle of a semester, but before the vaccine becomes available? If the answer is via the hybrid model, here's the problem with that. Absent a vaccine, the hybrid model is unsafe for students, teachers, and staff, plain and simple. Why? Because we're talking about kids here. Does anyone really think that kids will wear masks for the duration of a 7-hour school day or socially distance 100% of the time? I would like to meet some of these perfectly behaved model citizens who will follow all the rules all of the time in the selfless interest of keeping their classmates and teachers safe. Not reality, folks. I didn't work in Hong Kong, and it didn't work in Hong Kong, and it won't work here. Parents who signed up for Live at BHUSD need to know that schools will reopen when it's medically safe, which means no one's allowed in the classroom without a vaccination, not when it's statistically safe according to a formula. Just 5 days ago, Mayor de Blasio announced that NYC schools won't open until a vaccine becomes available. If New York can do this, why can't Beverly Hills? If the district cannot commit to conditioning return to school on the availability of a vaccine in this meeting, then kindly explain why students can't opt for distance learning full-time, since teachers will be using the very same digital tools in the hybrid model. Thank you, Bill Scheinbrot. And this is the second to last letter. We are appreciative of the continued work and frequent communication around plans for the upcoming school year, especially amidst a rapidly changing environment. Understandably, there are still many unknowns and resulting unanswered questions. Parents were asked to make a decision about student enrollment in the ILC by this past Monday without clarity on the Live at BHUSD offering, and with recognition that the ILC will likely pale in comparison to what Live at BHUSD has the potential to be. At the special meeting of the board on July 21st, Mr. Margot asked the question on many of our minds. If and when students can begin to return to the school in phases, why can't students enrolled in the Live at BHUSD option continue to receive all of their educational instruction online? This should absolutely be an option. Additionally, while it is important for plans to be thoroughly articulated for an in-person return, why doesn't the district commit to being online for the entire fall semester? Why not focus on providing a single mode of educational delivery and doing it exceptionally well? We appreciate there are so many differing opinions and different demands being placed on the board and administrative leadership, and you will not be able to please everyone. However, it seems like the responsible decision to focus on the safety of our community without compromising on the education of our children. Focusing resources and attention for the fall semester on delivering interactive and productive online educational content will ensure the safety of our school community and a more engaging virtual experience for our children. That's from Rachel Ellenport. And this is my last letter. Good afternoon, President Hacker, Vice President Marcus, and members of the BHUSD Board of Education. I'm again writing today on behalf of myself and other teachers and staff members concerned about the possibility of being required to teach from our classrooms. I wrote a letter last week that was not read, and today I'm writing with the hope that my letter will be read as well as entered into the public record. As you know, I am an alum and veteran teacher at Beverly Hills High School. My daughter is a student at Horace Mann. I am passionate about this district and only want safety, good health, and success for all students and employees. I have shared that my room in the STC is essentially a petri dish. I am requesting the ability to choose from where I teach. I have always welcomed you into my classroom, and some of you have taken me up on that offer. I encourage you to visit my Google Meet sessions in the fall as well. Why am I asking to teach from home? Let's start with the safety being paramount. COVID-19 is scary. COVID-19 is deadly. COVID-19 can cause long-term health effects. The CDC recently sponsored a billboard on the I-10 freeway that states, slow the spread, stay at home if you can, #alone together. We can stay at home, slow the spread, stay safe, and be very effective teachers. Teachers may be essential workers, but the choice to stay safe versus placing people at risk, why would we not choose safety? I do not see this as a difficult decision. This is not a decision based on educational issues. There should be no debate. This is a decision about health and the spreading of a scary, highly virulent, contagious pathogen. How could you in all good conscience place any person in harm's way? How will you feel when your decision is the reason someone gets sick, especially when it's preventable? There is no decision. Keep your employees safe. Please do the right thing and allow teachers the choice to work from school or their homes. Remember, slow the spread, stay at home if you can. Thank you, take care, and stay safe. Marla Weiss, Math, Science, Athletics, Beverly Hills High School.
Okay, thank you for that, Mrs. Marcus.
Okay, I have 4 letters to read. The first one, Dear Beverly Hills Unified School Board of Education, thank you for all your hard work to keep BHUSD a leading California school district. It is not an easy task, especially in this time of the COVID pandemic. My children are twins who attend different schools. Our son is in BHUSD, Hawthorne, and Beverly Vista Middle School, while our daughter attends a private school. Throughout the years, I have proudly stated that while our daughter that his education has been as good as, and some ways even better than hers. When COVID hit our daughter's school, they responded by switching to Zoom classes. Teachers were resourceful in adapting schoolwork to home, for example, sending out pre-assembled kits so the girls could do assigned projects. Unfortunately, BHUSD did not respond as effectively as it could have in the spring of 2020. I hope that 2021 will be a year that we can be proud of. I would like to make 2 recommendations to help achieve that goal. 1, delay the start of school for students by 1 to 2 weeks so teachers may develop online curriculum. Online classes are not equivalent to in-person classes, even when they happen in real time, such as on Zoom. Teachers must provide engaging interactive lessons using a medium that prevents the students from being as involved as they would be in the classroom. Developing an online curriculum takes planning and practice and troubleshooting, a complex interactive process, and our middle school and high school teachers must do this for multiple different reasons. If the teachers dive right into school, then they will get caught up in the busy work of teaching and not having the time needed to focus on creating successful new lessons. Beverly Hills Unified School teachers should return to work on August 13th as scheduled, but the date that the students return to school should be postponed by a week or two. Those pupil-free days would be especially specific for teachers to get comfortable with the new technologies and develop effective online curriculum. I understand that some states have got require a minimum of 180 days of instruction. The 2021 calendar currently contains 182 days by my calculation. We could make up the 8 days available for curriculum development by recapturing Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and the Monday and Friday around both winter breaks and spring break, as well as February 8th. The loss of vacation time would be worth it to make sure our children receive an excellent education even during the pandemic. Number 2, provide teachers the flexibility to teach from the classroom or from home. If teachers and children are not together, then the teacher's physical location could be anywhere. Some might prefer the quiet of an empty classroom. Some might prefer the safety of their own homes. And some might want to choose
Mrs.
whether.
Marcus, I'm sorry to interrupt you. That's 3 minutes.
I just want to mention this letter is from Michael Amir Salkin. Dear Board of Education, I have been a teacher in the district for 24 years now and have worked tirelessly to make my curriculum challenging and engaging. Last semester was the most challenging semester of my teaching career, even though I have always worked to incorporate digital lessons into my teaching when possible. I worked 10 to 12 hours a day preparing materials I could use through Google Classroom. I wonder what will happen if a teacher comes down with COVID-19. How will you guarantee that all the other people the teacher came in contact with while at school will not suffer the same fate? How can you put our lives in danger by mandating that we have to go to our school sites to teach lessons virtually? Why not give us the professionals a choice? What will happen if I get sick and cannot teach my students? Who will teach on my behalf? Given how virulent this virus is, it would take a long time to recover, and in the meantime, my students will not have access to the top-notch instruction I can offer. What if I infect my son and husband? Who will take care of all of us? What if we return to school at some point and the infection rate has not improved? What do we do when you have one student test positive? Do we make all the students and the exposed teachers go into quarantine? This pandemic has such widespread implications that it is a bit unfathomable to understand why you want us to return to our school site where we can potentially expose others or be exposed in return. What do I do with my child when I am required to teach from school? Since there's no one at home to take care of him, since my husband works full time, I would need to bring him to the school with me. We find ourselves in an unprecedented situation, and given the rise of COVID-19 cases, I do not feel comfortable to be driving to school each day to present lessons to my students from my classroom. Truthfully, I can do that just as well from home. I hope that you consider giving all the teachers a choice in deciding where they can feel comfortable teaching, from. Sincerely, Daniela Camp Taylor. Greetings, board members, staff, parents, students, and community members. I am writing to you as a COVID-19 case numbers continue to rise in our county, state, nation, and world. To say that I am alarmed is an understatement. As such, I thank you for deciding to start school in distance learning mode. I know that this learn at home model is not popular with all of the constituents, but it is safer according to the large number of health experts and the LA County Department of Health. Hopefully, during the time that students are at home, the think tank and other support groups will create safe return to school plans and procedures, allow administration and MNO the time and resources to create safe and healthy learning environments that comply with the Los Angeles County, state, and the CDC protocols and guidelines, and allows survey groups the ability to give valuable feedback and ideas for transparent and community-based transition back to in-person learning. I also hope that these protocols and guidelines will be implemented long before any staff or students even thought to be placed in educational settings. Currently, although all parties involved have been working to create a safe environment for students and staff to return to, I cannot condone the concept that teachers must be teaching from the classroom and support staff must be working in the offices. According to the LA County's reopening protocol, dated July 18, 2020, this order intent is to continue to ensure that county residents remain in their residence as much as practicable to limit close contact with other outsiders in their household in both indoor and outdoor spaces. All persons who can telework or work from home should continue to do so as much as possible. I understand that the government employee I am essential. However, I do not see how my duties cannot be performed at home more effectively and safely than those at the school site. At home, I lessen my exposure to this disease and concurrently maximize my planning, teaching, and grading time with and for my students. In fact, I have continued meeting throughout the summer via Zoom with students 3 times a week as the academic decathlon team needs to prepare a huge amount of curriculum for competitions which start in the fall semester. I have attended a number of webinars and reviewed lessons learning from the spring to plan for the fall. Throughout the past weeks, I have assured my students that the board and district are working out for their best interests, all the while becoming increasingly concerned that my own safety is perilous. This is a pandemic, and although I am part-time due to medical reasons, I still will have to fight and justify why I should work from home, whereas other professionals guarantee their workers' rights to work at home. I truly feel that despite assurances,
Excuse me, Mrs. Marcus, I'm sorry to interrupt. That's 3 minutes.
Okay, I would just like to mention that this letter is from a lady teacher named Anne Marie Fine from Beverly Hills High School. And the last letter I'm to read comes from a lady named Nancy Mincosi. Dear school members, I came to Beverly Hills Schools last year as an I-4 coach and have worked with teachers across the district on meaningful technology integration for the past 12 months. I know that as you make the decision about whether teachers will be allowed the option to work from home during this global pandemic, you are concerned about their ability to deliver quality instruction to students. You should not be worried. What teachers were doing from March through June was crisis teaching. They were responding to an unprecedented and constantly changing situation to the best of their ability. They were reacting and adjusting to something completely new and unexpected, for which most of them had no training and for which they had not yet planned. When students return to school, even though they will still be learning from home, the education they receive will be different because this time the teachers have planned for distance learning. Where we had teacher check-ins, we will now have teacher-led instruction. Where we were simply reacting, we will now be purposeful. Where we were focused on review and not losing ground, we will now be focusing on ensuring students meet grade level and content standards. I have spent the last 4 months planning and implementing professional development on distance learning, and I can assure you that the dedicated teachers of the district will meet their students in August and deliver high-quality, rigorous instruction. These educators have learned how to use my ViewBoard software, and which is not available on their computers and does not require them to be in the classroom with large flat panel monitors, as well as many other platforms and resources, and they are well equipped to address whatever awaits them this semester. The educators of Beverly Hills Unified School District are ready to implement thoughtful, sophisticated lessons for their students and to collaborate with colleagues, and they are able to do it from anywhere. It won't matter if they're in their classrooms or their dining rooms. Some may prefer to teach exclusively on campus, some may go from time to time, and some may never need to step foot in the school building to meet students when they are and move forward. The technology at their disposal will allow them to deliver the quality education that our students and families expect, whether the instruction is coming from on or off campus. I know some are concerned about accountability. The teachers I work with are capable, skilled, and creative. Even those who experience the most difficult using technology to teach in March are ready to go now. I know they would welcome the board members, cabinet members, or administrators into their virtual classrooms at any time, just as they would into their physical classroom. I know they would be pleased and proud to show off their skills. For many teachers in this district, coming to school every day would mean putting ourselves and our families in danger, whether it is because we are in an at-risk group like myself, we have underlying conditions that put us at a higher risk, or we live with at-risk family members. We are professionals. I implore you to give us that choice. Please keep the health and safety of everyone in mind and allow us to make the
Sorry,
decision
Mrs. Marcus,
one
that's
half of a second as to the best way to do our job and the best place from which to do it. Thank you, Nancy Minicosi.
Thank you, Mrs. Marquez. Okay, so just to reiterate, last week when we met, we had a study session on last Friday, I'm sorry. And I explained to the community, to everyone watching, that we had received over, I believe, 37 comments. And not all of them we weren't able to read all of them, but they all have been entered into the record. I also promised that I would pick some and read them today, and I will do that shortly. But I just want to let everyone know that, sometimes when we have an overwhelming number of letters sent to the board, it is impossible for us to read them all. And I've asked council if we can pull some, if the theme is similar along the lines of the communication being received, and the answer has been yes. And so, we're not trying to ignore or be selective. I actually am the one responsible for pulling letters and sending them to the board. And we get those very soon, close to before we go public. So I'm not editing anyone out of an opportunity to not be heard. We try to do that and capture that through public record. So just wanted to reiterate that. And I apologize that we just can't get to everyone's letter. But today we did, actually. I believe we really made an effort to read all the letters that were received today as of, I believe, 2:00. And I've been watching those letters. So I'm sure I'm going to miss some. And if we did miss yours, I want to in advance apologize. And please know that your letter will be entered along with all the letters received today into the record, and they will be posted as part of our minutes. So with that said, I will now read one letter that I received today, and then I'm going to go back and read some of the letters from last week's record. Dear Beverly Hills Board of Education, my name is Annette Goldstein, and I have been teaching in BHUSD since 1994. I have loved working with Beverly Hills community, and I felt lucky to have the opportunity to work with so many wonderful families over the past 26 years. I am a glass half full type of person, and was taught at an early age to look for the positive when faced with negative situations. Like everyone else, I am trying to manage this new reality of COVID living. Social media just isn't my thing, but with the current climate, I have found myself logging on and reading posts, WhatsApps, and Discord text streams. It is so sad and frustrating for me to read so many of these mean and sometimes ridiculous comments and posts from the community that has been my home away from home for so many years. Generalizations are being made, and many who post do not have the facts. One person mentioned that one of her children went to private school and went to BHUSD. She stated that when distance learning started, private school went straight to Zoom and BHUSD did not. I don't know the person who publicized this untrue statement, but I know that I and many of my colleagues went straight to Zoom live teaching the first day after spring break. I know that I and many of my colleagues spent many, many hours adjusting to virtual teaching in March and did a fantastic job both teaching curriculum as well as attending to students' social media and emotional needs. All of this generalized teacher bashing is really taking a toll, and many of us are just finding it hard to stay positive. While I know from positive feedback these comments are not directed towards me personally, I would still like to impress upon you and the community at large to acknowledge that although there have been some hiccups in March's distance learning, there were also many successes as well. For some reason, the good works are not as noteworthy as the missteps. I would also like to impress upon you to reach out to the administration to identify the staff that didn't cut the mustard and work with them, rather than labeling the entirety of distance learning as 2.0 as a failure. I have stated publicly many times that I do not support the practice of tenure, and that still holds true. How about holding the ineffective teachers accountable? As a parent, I have reported terrible experiences with my children have had with some pretty crappy teachers, and nothing ever seems to be done to fix the problem. From what I understand, there are steps in place to deal with the inadequate teachers. How about we focus on them so that they stop giving the rest of us a bad name? Thank you for listening. I feel better already for getting that off my chest. Best regards, Annette Goldstein, a teacher from Horseman School. Thank you, Mrs. Goldstein, for your comments tonight. I'm going to now continue and pull some again from last week. Dear BHUSD Board, my name is Michelle Bonavita. I have been a special education teacher at BHUSD since 2008. I started the program at Horseman and as a prime teacher. In addition, I was a resource teacher at Horseman for K to second grade. Following this, I was an instructional support specialist for the district. In this past school year, I was a mild moderate special education teacher at Hawthorne Elementary School, a position I will continue for the 2021 school year. I write this letter to express my empathetic disagreement with any inclination to require teachers and staff to work from school campuses during the pandemic. First and foremost, it endangers us and our families. Second, many if not most of us have young children who will be forced to engage in home learning, thus requiring at least one parent to remain at home with their children. I have 3 young children, 2 of which will be at home for at least the first half of 2020-21 school year, with a chance that my youngest will be home as well. My husband is the sole practitioner attorney whose practice obligations do not permit him to attend to our children's home learning needs, thus requiring me to assist in this endeavor. We do not have any other childcare options. Just a minute. I've lost myself here. Okay. I understand that the board is concerned with teachers not performing as expected if they do so from home. First, most teachers completed their professional duties during the pandemic. For example, during Home Learning 2.0, I was able to provide my students their needed SAI minutes and co-treated with the speech pathologist, occupational therapist, school psychologists, and general education teachers. I was also able to provide consultation to the general education teachers. Lastly, I was able to provide my students' respective families with additional guidance and emotional support. The district has a number of methods to ensure teacher accountability that do not require teachers to work at school campus, and I encourage the board to explore the same. Our safety and that of our families must be given the utmost consideration and respect. Respectfully, Michelle L. Bonvenita. Thank you, Ms. Bonvenita, for your letter tonight. The next letter that I have. Dear Board of Education, I'm a retired teacher, having worked for Beverly Hills Unified for 38 years. I am very concerned about my fellow colleagues returning to their classrooms in August. Many of the classrooms have inoperable windows and poor ventilation. Medical professionals continuously urge people to keep their windows open with fans to circulate fresh air. Classrooms must have extremely good sanitation, otherwise it is highly dangerous for the staff. In addition, most of those restrooms teachers to use without inoperable windows. The teachers in BHUSD are devoted to the education of their students. I truly hope that the members of the board are devoted to the health and well-being of their teachers. Please let them choose to either teach from home or their classrooms. Thank you, Michelle Mendelson. Thank you for that letter. The next one that I have, just bear with me a little bit. Okay. School reopening. Stay safe at this critical time is key. Staying safe at this critical time is key. Educators should not have to go back into the classroom until it is safe for everyone, and now is definitely not that time. The COVID-19 situation in California is worse now than it was in March when our state shut down. We all agree that educating our students is important. At the same time, there's a need now more than ever to stay healthy and keep our families safe. Requiring teachers to go back to school to deliver distance learning when other organizations are giving employees a choice to work from home is not right. Teachers are professionals. Technology allows us to conduct our business from home effectively. Being at school and sharing spaces with others during this time of COVID-19 cases spiking in California is not the right time. The pandemic is real and businesses are shutting down. There is no good reason why we need to be at school to teach. If you care about the safety of the students and they are safer at home, you should care about the safety of those who teach them. No one wants to see anyone get sick because they had to be forced to go back to work in an environment that is not safe. Please do the right thing and allow us to teach from home until we are all safe and can return to school. That is from Coach Heather Ash. Thank you, Mrs. Ash, for submitting your letter tonight, or that was Friday, actually. 37, just a minute. What type of assistance do you have in place for families with working parents? What type of direction will the younger elementary school age students be given to allow them to manage online instruction? Many families have caretakers who cannot help kids online with school. And that comes to us from Ellie Lahiji. Thank you, Ms. Lahiji, for your comment tonight. And I believe Mr. Fetterman's letter was already read by Mr. Margot. So that is going to conclude our public comment. As I mentioned to you earlier, all the other letters that were not read will be entered into the record, but I believe we got to most of those who were submitted to us tonight. On behalf of the school board, I do hear and understand the frustration that is being expressed through the communication that has come before us tonight, last week. But I want to say that this is a result of negotiations and which are still ongoing. And we hope to resolve the issues today. We are hopeful that we will be able to resolve those issues soon. And again, the timeline of scheduled negotiations meetings has not allowed us to have anything new to report on right now, but please know that that is not a result of ignoring comments or concerns. It has to do with negotiations and pre-scheduled meetings. And on behalf of the board, I do want to say that, reopening in the most safe environment for all stakeholders is a key element that is dear to every board member. And so I want to defend the board and to also defend the voices of all who have written in today to say that we are all on the same page. So thank you for that. And I can't say more because we're still in negotiations, but I hope you hear me loud and clear because I want to transcend that to you right now in this moment. And with that, we are going to move on from our public comment, not our public meeting yet. And let's see here. We have staff presentations, correct, Dr. Breggy? So I'm going to give you the floor at this moment, and the meeting's yours.
Thank you so much. I think what we've learned from a lot of the comments, even tonight, which it's such a great opportunity to listen and to learn. When you think back to March, boy, we've learned so much about this virus. And not only about the medical and science behind it, but also, how we work as professionals. And even I would hope that all of us have evolved as people. It's a lot different today than it was several months ago. And I think that the people that I come into contact with, we do a lot of heavy reflecting on where we and where we're going. And it's refreshing to know that so many people are willing to look forward and to make improvements based on the experiences that we've just had. A good segue into the staff presentation is we did something a little bit different with working with our community. We wanted to extend our knowledge a bit by reaching out to our community. We had a very comprehensive application process. And so we put together a Return to Learn think tank. And it was a wonderful opportunity to get to know some community members that we have not met before, and have a collaboration of putting together best practices that would help aid us in the physical reopening of our schools. And all of our meetings went over time. I did a bad job of stopping them on time because it was just such good information. And it was different because we were virtual, all except for one. But I feel like every single person participated in a way that will be helpful to us as we put the physical reopening plan together. And we're well underway with that plan. And this information, the recommendations that you're going to hear tonight, are going to be implemented into the work that we've already started. So I'm excited to be able to have that information presented to you from our think tank. But before we start, I would like to, if the think tank participants, if you don't mind, to just unmute yourself for a second. And it may be a little, we may be walking over each other for a couple minutes, but I do want you to have an opportunity to please just introduce yourself and just, maybe a little bit about your position and, your kids in the district and so forth.
Okay, I'll go. I'm Jocelyn Bresnick. I teach kindergarten at Hawthorne, and nice to see everybody.
My name is Dr. Reitman. I'm a pediatrician and a neonatologist in the area, and I have 2 children who are at Hawthorne. And it's been a great privilege to be part of this group. I can tell you we've spent many, many hours on meetings as well as going to schools, facilities to evaluate whether we can open them up in a more safer manner.
I'm Steve Hinden. I'm an attorney. I have 3 kids in the district, 1 at Beverly Vista and 2 at Horace Mann. I really enjoyed being on this think tank, and there's a lot of good people on here, and hopefully you guys really appreciate what we have come up with.
I'm Lee Hilborn. I'm a pathologist at UCLA. I also work at Quest, and hopefully contribute to some stuff. There's been a lot of talk about testing, but I really appreciate the opportunity to work with the entire group. I am an alum of Beverly Hills High, and I really appreciate this opportunity to pay it forward for me and my family.
Hi, I'm Frank Chechel. I'm an actuary. And my daughter, Haley, goes to Beverly Vista Middle School. It really has been a pleasure. And I really want to thank the entire administration. You guys have worked so tirelessly, and it's pretty thankless in a once in a 100-year pandemic. So thank you guys for all you're doing.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Caravana Blanco. I have 2 children that attend Horace Mann School. In addition to that, I have a background in clinical mental health and school-based family counseling. I'm proud to be part of the community think tank and all the hard work that we have done. In addition to that, I'm also proud to be one of 6 comprehensive school counselors at Beverly High.
My name is Andrea Rosenfeld, and I've got 2 kids who currently attend the district, one that's at Horace Mann and one that will be starting at BVMS in the fall. I work as a school psychologist, and it's been absolutely my honor and privilege to be part of this think tank and to have the ability to contribute to safely finding ways to get our kids into this coming school year.
I'll jump in. I'm Craig Bugby, principal at Horace Mann Elementary School. I'm honored and humbled to work with such an amazing group of people on our #1 goal of getting kids back to school as soon as we can.
I'm Kevin Allen, and I'm the principal at Beverly Vista Middle School. And I'd like to reiterate what Craig just said. It's been such a great experience to work with such a high-level group of professionals from so many different backgrounds that I actually learned a lot from them. And I feel pretty strong about the proposal that we're going to be presenting tonight.
My name is Mark Mead. I'm the principal of the high school, and I also found this a very rewarding experience, getting to know people from the community and talking about the myriad ways that we can look at our schools and make them as safe as possible now and if and when we return in the near future.
I'm Sarah Caver. I'm the principal at Hawthorne School, and I just want to thank everyone who put in so much time on this committee to help direct us, answer our questions that we had, give us some advice and some really good things to think about. So thank you for your time.
I'm Pam Chenault. I'm the Assistant Community Services Director with the City of Beverly Hills. And it's been my honor working with a great group of highly professional experts as we look at how to get the kids back safely to school.
Okay, Dr. Breggy, does that conclude the team?
I thought there was a couple more people that maybe are shy.
Rick also is here. Did you want to, that's the only other person who's in this Zoom. There are other people obviously part of the team, but Rick, did you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I will. Sorry, I had a sticky mute button happening there. This is Rick Porso, and I've been very pleased to be part of this team, very rewarding. I have a long-term background, 30 plus years in governmental public health, mostly environmental health. And currently I manage global health and safety for a large international corporation. Thanks.
And I know that Lynn Eggerman was on too, who's a psychiatrist, but I might not be on anymore.
And real briefly, we do have 2 children at Hawthorne. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Rick. And there's many other people that were on the committee that are very busy, and they did make time for the committee. I think one of the most rewarding things about the committee is that we did not always agree. And so we had a lot of lively discussion. I think that what was really the most important part about some of our spirited conversations was the fact that we did agree on following the public health order. And it was really nice to see everyone that really dived in to understand the public health order, but everybody then agreeing that that's kind of the baseline, and that we can easily exceed what the public health order is saying in order to make sure that that we are as safe as we possibly can. So it was a very rewarding experience from that perspective, and I do want to give an opportunity, and I'm going to share my screen for our think tank members to help us kind of walk us through this and their recommendations. And can you see my screen? If somebody can give me a thumbs up.
It's a little bit big. Do you want to do that view? Oh yeah, you can just change the percentage.
Yeah, I'll just change this. Is that better? Can everyone see this okay? Or I can make it a little bit smaller. Okay, I think that's probably the best way. Some of the people that did not get a chance to introduce themselves, here is more about our team right here. And our charge was fairly simple, although very complex and complicated when you look at putting this charge into practices and protocols. And that is to provide recommendations to our Board of Education on how to best reopen the physical schools in our school district. And so we did show a video last week on some of the discussions we were having physically on site, wearing masks, physically distant, because all the information, the data from the science and all of the public health order that we we're learning is wonderful, but it's different when you have to be in a physical location and you have to actually put it into practice. And it changes very quickly depending on what school you're at, based on the size of classrooms, hallways, entry areas, and things like that. So we spread out and we were able to do just that. We are going to go back to the high school, even though Mr. Mead was part of our assessment as well. There are a lot of construction constraints in place, and for safety reasons, we are waiting before we do that assessment, but we will be tackling that as soon as possible, because that is definitely an important site that we want to walk and ensure that we get the assessments correctly. So I'll turn this over to our participants that were at BVMS to go over their assessment recommendations.
Dr. Breggy, thank you so much. This is Kevin Allen, the principal of Beverly Vista, and I'd like to thank Frank Chechel and Stephen Hinden for their hard work at Beverly Vista. We met to go over things. There were several other people. Pam from the city was also a part of our team. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Stephen and Frank, and then other members that were on our team can also jump in. So Stephen and Frank.
Can I just interrupt for 1 second?
Please do.
Dr. Breggy, I hate to be that person, but your battery is flashing. So if we lose you, I might share my screen, but your battery is flashing on your screen.
Okay, let me, if it goes out, it's all yours, and I'll see you tomorrow.
It stopped flashing, so that looks good.
All right, you got the magic plug icon now. You're all good.
You're doing good. I'm so easily.
Okay, Frank, go ahead and take it away.
Actually, it's going to be me.
Oh, Stephen, okay, perfect. All right.
First off, thank you to the board. Thank you to Dr. Breggy and your whole admin team. Thank you, Kevin, for the kind words a moment ago. I appreciate that. Okay, so as you can see in the document on the screen there, I hope you can still see it. So some of the recommendations that we have are listed here, and they need to be expanded upon later. This is sort of just more of a bullet point thing. But starting with the start of the school day, we're recommending for Beverly Vista only, our entrance will be on to the field off of Elm through the gates there. We think it's the widest place. You can get more kids in and not have them lined up out in front on the sidewalk or in car line. So that's going to be our plan, and I'll get to the rest of that in a second here. Sort of jumping back and forth, and I apologize because you have the CDC list up right now, but if you scroll down to the next page, it talks about on the field with digital scanners. So the public health order mandates wellness checks. Temperature checks are optional. We're recommending that we do them, especially since you're already going to have somebody giving wellness checks to all the kids. So we'll set up some sort of portable structure, tables, tents if you need them, somewhere on the blacktop after you enter onto the playground at BV or the field there. We're recommending a minimum of 5 people. That's 5 people with temperature scanners, lines with distance space so that you can have the kids line up in all these lines as they're coming onto campus. They're going to be met by some type of staff member, which we're recommending some sort of a medical assistant, but that's going to be up to you guys who you want to use. They will give a quick temperature scan, digital temperature scan, and then do a quick wellness check. And if you scroll back, to the page before, you see the CDC checklist there. And so what these are is that if any child falls into one category on the left, they're automatically going to have to leave campus and go home. Or if they fall into any of the categories on the right, they need 2 of those. So for instance, headache alone would not send a kid home or put them in an isolation room. But if they had headache and sore throat, they're probably going to have to be isolated and then sent home. We felt that having the kids line up on the field was the best possible practice because there are so many kids that walk at that age to school. And so while it would be preferred maybe to have car line with the parents still there, and if a kid fails the temperature or wellness check, they can immediately go home. That doesn't quite work the same in the middle school. So that's why we felt that having them on campus, lining them up on the field there, and doing the temperature wellness checks. We also recommend some signage, some big signage to be put there where the temperature and wellness checks are being taken so that the kids can quickly scan the symptoms that they're going to be asked about to make sure they are thinking about that, because it's not only symptoms that they might be having, but also if there's people in their household that they live with that might have some of these symptoms, that may ding them, for lack of a better term. We also think that signs should be placed elsewhere around campus, and you could scroll down onto the next page if you want. So quick temperature scan, don't go past, not too far, go back up. Quick temperature scan, ask the questions in the wellness check. If the kid passes the temperature and wellness check, they proceed onto campus through the playground and then enter into the school building through the breezeway. On the field, we will need to set up some sort of temporary isolation area so that if a child doesn't pass a temperature or wellness check, they're to be put into the isolation area, and their parents will be contacted so they can be picked back up. Let's see. Staff will enter through a different entrance. There's a staff entrance at BV already. And so the staff is going to have their own temperature and wellness checks taken by someone at that point in time as well. And then there'll be a similar protocol for a staff member, although they don't need to be isolated. They would just go home. On campus, we need to have an isolation room. So you can see the bold heading there. So at BV, we're recommending that the MPR, the multi-purpose room, on the first floor of, I believe that's the D building. Kevin, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
That would be the multipurpose room. It's the E building.
E building.
Yeah.
Thank you. That we set up an isolation room there. The isolation room is a room where a child will go if they are exhibiting COVID symptoms, have a high temperature, generally don't feel well, but within that symptomatology, they'd go there, they'll be isolated, and their parent would be called so they can be picked up. We feel that the nurse's office at Beverly Vista is probably too small to handle this type of situation. There could be, our estimate, depending on how many kids are on campus at one point in time, if we're doing, say, 50% cohort model, you could have maybe 10, maybe 20 kids that need to be isolated at one point in time. So we would think that you would need some sort of dividers with some sort of curtains, plastic chairs, things like that. So you can have the kids in these little isolation rooms within the NPR room and separated from everyone else in there. And something to think about is that you won't know if a kid has coronavirus when you send them to the isolation room. They may just be exhibiting symptoms. And as we get into the fall or in the winter, you may have flu-like symptoms, things like that. So we have to take precautions to remove the kid from the classroom and everybody else. But when you put them in the isolation room, you might very well be putting a kid in there who does not have coronavirus. They're just exhibiting symptoms. So we have to take precaution in there as well. So all those little isolation rooms are going to have to be separated by at least 6 feet. And that's why we think the partitions will help. They're always going to have to be wearing masks no matter what. We're going to need some staff in there as well, helping monitor the kids, make phone calls, things of that nature. For exiting the school, we think we'll probably just open everything up. That was Kevin Allen's idea. We'll have the bell tower on Charleville, field gate, the arch on Elm. There may be, as you can see there, a staggered dismissal schedule. There may be a situation where, depending on what building you are currently in at the end of the day, you will have a route that you are, or an exit that you are designated to exit out of, so that we don't have kids crossing back and forth all over campus. Bathrooms, these are big. We know this is a concern for everybody. There's already at BV monitors for the bathrooms because there's all sorts of other activity that goes on in the bathrooms that they want to keep an eye on. Our best recommendation is one person at a time in the bathroom with a monitor outside the bathroom, not inside the bathroom, but a monitor outside the bathroom, making sure that only one person goes in at a time. But realistically, guys, you keep your mask on, you wash your hands, the bathrooms are going to be okay. As long as we don't let too many people congregate in there, I think it'll be okay. And they're going to be cleaned frequently and consistently is the wording that we recommend there. And lastly, before I turn it over to Frank, who's going to take us home at BV, just additional spaces that we have on campus, the library, the north side blacktop seating area, which I believe, Kevin, that's the former kindergarten playground. We have the auditorium and then the reading green in the middle of campus there. These are all areas that we can use for various other things, whether it be lunchtime, whether it be additional classroom space. whatever we need, we have these other areas of BV. It's a great campus and there's a lot of room out there. So for now, I think that's it for my part. I don't know if I missed anything. That's it.
You did great.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks,
No
guys.
problem.
Nice job, Stephen.
So, Mr. Allen, I want to add that Steve Galen was part of our group, as was Mr. Waters too, right? I just want to,
right.
again, acknowledge kind of how much time the administration is putting in behind the scenes. A lot of folks aren't seeing that we got a chance to see as part of the task force that, hey, Steve, could you mute your computer? Thanks.
Thanks. That's true. That's exactly right. Thank you, Frank.
No. So there's a lot of work happening behind the scenes that we as a task force really got to see, and there is a lot of work happening. I would add too that these are initial recommendations. I think for some of these things like cleaning and other stuff, I think there's a lot more detail to work out, but we'll get to that. So real quick, in terms of some good news here, we do have a lot of space, like Stephen mentioned, with additional spaces. And I think with signage and directional traffic, I think the short answer is I think that's manageable. We'll do one-way traffic. We'll set up signs to make sure folks are compliant, but I think that is very doable. Mr. Waters already has kind of an initial plan in place to make that happen. In terms of compliance team representatives, I don't know, Mr. Allen, if you want to talk to this, but I know both Josh and Rich, and they're phenomenal, two of our assistant principals. So I think you couldn't pick two better people to lead that effort. So
Ms. McRae is wonderful as well. It's a great team.
Absolutely. So in terms of exposure, I think there's a lot more detail here, and I'll talk a little bit about what happens if we have a positive exposure. We touch on it here, but basically there'll be communication of notification if there's a positive exposure, right? Go to anyone who was in contact with that person for more than 15 minutes. The implications for that for the middle school, where there's rotations between classes, is pretty huge. So we'll talk about that with the unique obstacles. I don't know, Mr. Allen or Mr. Breggy, if you want to touch on that at all, because I know that's sort of evolving with the public health orders and stuff like that. Yep.
Dr. Briggy,
okay.
Dr. Briggy, that would be something with the public health order that you may want to address it.
Yeah. So, I mean, and at this time, because it's changing all the time, that, we're staying on top of everything that's coming in, from the exposure piece of it, and the contact tracing part of it. And so those details are still kind of evolving. So,
yeah.
But we are getting, indication now that, if you're, around somebody, that is positive for, more than 15 minutes, at any given time, that could put you in jeopardy, and then that would be a time for you to quarantine yourself. However, I say that, but as we learn more and more about what's happening, those changes are coming in. So it wouldn't surprise me if in this interim period, while we're still, in distance learning, that could change, and we'll make sure that we communicate that.
Yeah, just because we had a lot of conversations behind the scenes, and I don't think this captures all of it in terms of, compliance with HIPAA and what are we required to do by law, and then, just making sure that people weren't, if someone is quarantined, not, making sure they're not, blamed or anything, doxing of kids and things like that. That's a very important consideration with all of this that I think we'll be getting into. Cleaning as well, I think that's also something that will be frequent and consistent cleaning throughout the classrooms and the offices. So I think some more of the details around that are to come as we start to get ready to get back to campus, but it's obviously a very, very key piece here. And porous furniture, we talked about, that in terms of removing that from classrooms. So I do want to touch on the unique obstacles, and these are the really tough ones that are going to be the hardest maybe for the middle school to think through. One is lunch times. I think as I've talked to more people and read more stuff, the transmission, if you wear a mask and you stay 6 feet apart, and you wash your hands frequently, you're going to be okay. That's what they do in the hospitals. But when you pull your mask down to have lunch, that's a place that's going to be challenged. And you know, I've been at BV last year with the 900 kids and everybody having lunch at one time, and it was intense to say the least, right? Obviously we'll have less than that there, but I think staggered lunch times are something we're going to need to think about, and how to spread the kids out. And so I think that's going to be a key consideration for coming back to the middle school. And I know Mr. Mead did a tour with us, I'm sure, for the high school as well. That'll be a big consideration. How we do cleaning between those staggered lunch times and desk chairs between classes is going to be really important, because unlike the elementary school, kids are moving between classes, and I don't think there's any way to avoid that. We've talked about that for about a minute and then realized that's almost impossible. So how do we do that cleaning is going to be really important as well. Dismissal, again, a very chaotic time for the school. Lots of people trying to meet their parents, the big car line. You know, how do we handle that with large numbers of students? So I think staggered dismissal is something we'll have to think about, but also a key consideration. And this may be the most difficult piece, is the fact of, if we get one infection within the school, and I think our plans need to have a preparation for when we get an infection, what are we going to do? In the elementary school, you have one class that generally has one teacher, and those kids are together most of the day. There's some exceptions, but generally that's the case. In the middle school, if one kid becomes sick, my daughter becomes sick, 6 or 7 teachers are then needing to quarantine, and probably 100 to 150 kids need to quarantine. Basically a third of the cohort, if my math is right, Mr. Allen, you keep me honest here, but I'm thinking 400, 450 kids, about a third of that cohort is going to need to go home. I at least know math. I don't know much about medicine, but I know math. So, you know, the middle school and the high school have some unique challenges that just one infection is going to create a big issue, a bigger one than the elementary school. So I think when we think about bringing kids back, you know, the elementary school is going to be a little bit easier than the middle school from that perspective. You know, the last but not least here, staggered drop-off, pickup, and meal times. We've kind of touched on that, but I think we'll begin the semester with distance learning, a lot of work to do to get that started. But then I think the plans will evolve as we start to think about how to bring people back to campus. So, you know, I think one of the biggest issues with any individual infection coming back to school, getting the numbers down within the community is one of the biggest issues. You know, and I'm going to say one more thing, just because this literally happened today outside my apartment 2 hours ago. I live in an apartment with 20 people. I'm going to take 30 seconds here. I live in an apartment with 20 families, and there were 4 kids, high school age kids, I didn't know them, who walked up to our building intending to come into the lobby. None of them had masks on. One of them saw me, I had a mask on, and one of them put their mask on begrudgingly. The other 3 just sort of looked at me, and I was like, are you going to put a mask on? And they refused, right? And until this community, I walk around Beverly Drive and I see it's gotten better, but until this community makes it like unacceptable for people to walk into a building without a mask on the entire time, we are not going back to school, because there will be too many infections, and we're just not going back. So this literally happened this afternoon. We've got old people that live in this building, and, you know, there's risks with that. So until the community itself embraces masks like 100%, we're not going to be able to come back. All right, I'll get off my soapbox.
Love it, Frank. Good
I
job, buddy.
appreciate that, Frank. That's awesome, man.
Great. It's well said. And it's, you know, we're fortunate because we're such a small community that, you know, we, in such great communication that's happening with and working with our city, you know, you'd think that we'd be able to get this right because we're this small pocket in, you know, in a bigger LA.
And I think we can do it. I think we can do it. My point of this message is we can do it. I've seen it get so much better. Like as you walk around, it's gotten way better, but it's not all the way there. And we just got to keep doing it.
And that's why, you know, it's important to keep in mind too, is that as we put together and work with the county on the metrics, you know, and Frank, you're exactly right. It's, you know, it's unless that changes, then, you know, we aren't going to be able to move forward. because the metrics are not going to change and cases are going to keep going up. So I think we all are all responsible for pitching in here. And I know that this may be confusing to some people right now. I just want to just quickly say that, again, this is, our job is to do an amazing job professionally, personally, socially, emotionally, academically for our kids while we're in distance learning. But I want the community to know that we're already looking at how important this transition is, because we will be coming back. So I want people to know it's just as important we deliver an amazing distance learning program, but also for the reopening, physical reopening as well as, and that's why we're having these discussions now. Obviously, we're leaving El Rodeo for right now, but we have a placeholder for that. And I will turn it over to Hawthorne.
Hi, I'm Sarah Kaber, the principal at Hawthorne, and I want to thank the team that joined me last week, 2 weeks ago at Hawthorne to go through our site. Jocelyn Bresnick and Rick Porso and Dr. Aaron Reitman are here to help talk about this plan. So thank you. Also, David Hinden joined us, even though he doesn't have any students there, but thank you all to all of you.
Hi, board, thank you so much for allowing us to talk today. I can tell you one thing is that we have spent multiple times going to the different schools. I even try to make it as real as possible, because we're also here not to protect just our students, but also our faculty and other staff members. Where when we went there, I had Dr. Breggy, Ms. Kaber, everyone wear shields, just so that they had an idea what it would be like to talking through shields, just trying to make it more realistic. And I think we did a really good job. The thing about elementary school is what that Horseman has to deal with as well, is that there's different age groups. And so we really had to figure out how we can get all the students in. And we felt that the best way to do is basically open up all the different entrances. Previously, there was limited ones, but now we felt that opening all 6 possible entrances on Rexford to allow the students to come in. We also recommended staggered drop-off times and pickup times as well. The good thing is about doing distance learning when we start the school year off is that we still have time to finalize exactly what time we'd be starting schools off. Exiting the school as well. We also recommended having all the Rexford guests gates open. Isolation room, we actually looked at the nurse's office, because remember, there are going to be some students who are in the younger age who may have accidentally fell down and they just need to go to the nurse's room just for a Band-Aid or to be checked on. But for those students who fall into their criteria, if you have 1 or if you fall into the criteria of 2 symptoms where you could be concerned that you may have COVID-19, you need a place to isolate those as well as have the other students. So we were able to break the room up where we could at least fit 2 quarantine students. And we did have a plan that there were more students being symptomatic, that we can have another room open up. We were feeling that the community will have to take a little bit of ownership in having their students, their children come to school. So we were looking at questionnaires, QR codes for the parents had to fill out before their students would arrive. We looked at having whether it's staff, volunteers, parents, assistant, taking temperature checks for all the different students. For the younger age, we felt that it'd be useful for have the temperature checked while the student was still in their parents' car, just in case if they did meet the threshold, they wouldn't have to be getting out of the car. And for the few students that were walking to Hawthorne, that we would also have volunteers, staff, whomever the district decides to be there to take those temperature checks of those children. Either way, we thought that we were going to need many handheld temperature devices, as well as possible thermo scanners that have been used at some of the hospitals. And they have been quite effective in getting people in and out from one location to the next, getting an accurate temperature. I think that's kind of more or less on my component, what I wanted to touch base with. But we are taking this serious for the students as well as for the staff. Just want to let everyone know that we really did. So I think Ms. Bresnick, you have the next component.
Yes, okay. Hello, everybody. Dr. Bragg, if you could just scroll down a little bit to the next page. I just want to preface this also by saying that this is just where we're starting, right? Like this is just kind of like a baseline. And obviously as time progresses and as we learn more information and as hopefully things change and get better, so will these recommendations, but we had to start somewhere. So right now I will start with talking about the signage. So obviously we'll need a lot of directionality, right, for where people go and the traffic patterns for kids to be walking places. So at Hawthorne, we had already kind of planned to do something like this. We had been talking about this and there were some teachers on our site that we wanted to do this anyways, but this is now the perfect time to do this. So we're talking about using tape and circle dots and other just really fun, engaging visuals that are kind of strategically placed throughout the school to help with the traffic pattern, help with the flow. And then we also, of course, because we're in elementary school, we want to make sure that everything is as visual as possible so that our youngest learners that are on campus know what's going on and can help guide themselves throughout campus. One of the things that we also talked about was the restroom monitoring, pretty similar to what they talked about for BVMS, in that we're going to recommend that there's one person in the bathroom at a time with some sort of a monitor, just to make sure that kids are doing what they're supposed to be doing, washing their hands, staying distant from other students that are walking around. We also kind of discussed the possibility of having kids lining up outside of the bathroom with strategic placement. We're not 100% sure about that. We're just kind of thinking about different ideas. Okay, so I talked about the directional traffic. Okay, so we also have tons of other spaces to use. So like Dr. Reitman was saying, if we had other spaces that we needed to use for whatever reason, we have the NPR, we have a lot of outdoor space, we have a library classroom. Although the NPR isn't like ideal, if you've been there before, it's not the most fun place ever. But we do have a lot of other spaces. So let's scroll down and talk a little bit about the furniture. This was my favorite part to talk about or to get excited about. Yes, okay, so obviously thinking about elementary kids, there's a lot more involved, right? With them being able to like automate their own bodies and spaces. And so there's a lot of different ways that we could do this coming back. I am a part of a lot of really fun, cool teacher Facebook groups, and the really fun, cute, colorful one that you see on the lower left is I saw something like that. And I thought, wait, we could do that, right? This is totally doable. And yes, they are all 6 feet apart. We measured them. Sarah has a picture with a measuring tape. We measured them, so they're all 6 feet apart, and it's doable and it's a lot more engaging. And I don't have children, but I feel like if I did, that's the kind of classroom, if they had to be separated and we had to, employ all of these measures, that's the kind of classroom that I would want my personal kids to go to. But we also staged a couple of other classrooms. There's a second grade classroom to the right of that. And we configured that one in kind of like a U shape. And those are also all 6 feet apart. And then if you could scroll down just a little bit, so that picture to the left of the cutesy one, the one on the left, so that one is the rows, right? So that was another configuration. So the idea was we were looking at all of these classrooms is like, what are the possible ways that teachers could configure them so that it worked, right? And it was compliant, but also not like super scary and sterile and uninviting. So that was something that we looked at, and let's scroll down just a little bit. And all of that, by the way, super easy to clean. Like all of those cute little yoga mat areas, even the desks, super easy to clean. And yeah, I'm excited about it as much as I can be, right? Because like this whole situation, there's not much to be excited about, but like if this is what we're dealing with, then I feel like I, as a teacher, again, I teach kindergarten, I can get behind that. So that's really important to me, right? Because I don't want kids coming back and being afraid to be in school or feeling like their classroom is not a familial place, a warm place, because we work really hard as teachers to make sure that our classrooms are first and foremost that, right? We spend so much time decorating them, configuring them. There's a lot of thought that goes into that. So I wanted to make sure that that wasn't something that was lost, because that's a huge component to all of this. So that's my spiel. Sarah, you're up.
So I have to unmute myself. Our final piece is our compliance team. Again, we're talking about assistant principals, Kevin Painter. There would also be parents, teachers, and of course our health assistant, which we think is a critical part of that. And then our health assistant would have the job of helping to check in staff as they come in with a specific entrance and a sign off. Again, when we're talking about exposure, it's the same for that the VMS spoke about 15 minutes. Anyone who's been exposed to someone who comes in contact for more than 15 minutes from the previous day. Steve and Frank sort of talked about this a bit, in that the middle school model, there's a lot more students that are exposed. And so if we continue to set up our schedule where we have a specialist model where different classes rotate through a specialist class, and that we could potentially have a larger number of people exposed as well. So we need to really be thoughtful about what scheduling looks like as we come back, and how many students we're exposing each other to, and what's self-contained. So that's part of our conversation in the exposure is scheduling. The cleaning piece, I just want to make sure that it's noted that in the health order that came out from LA County, all of the high touch areas, they have to be cleaned 3 times per day. And we thought we would need something like a checklist where you would see in a public restroom what time it was cleaned, who was doing it, and that there's a person responsible for it, so that there's real clear follow through and ownership of that, that make both the person whose room it is, the teacher and staff that are in that room, feel safe, but also that anyone who's supervising can help to support anyone who maybe needs some assistance to do it better, or to do it differently, or to do to continue to do it great, and like compliment those people that are doing great. We did put in a unique obstacle at Hawthorne, as it's a very old building and has a very old air conditioning system. We definitely talked about that there's some whole buildings where the air circulation is connected throughout all of the classrooms in every building. And we talked about the possibility of putting in air conditioning and air filtration systems that would be portable within a classroom. Would that help? So that's all of that. Sorry, I can hand it over to Horace Mann.
Yep. Up next is Horace Mann. This is Craig Bugbee, the principal at Horace Mann. I want to personally thank everyone who took part in working with the Horace Mann community coming that night. Lee Hilborn will be our expert presenting tonight. But Lee, before you start, I want to point out a few things that are, I think, important. Ms. Kaber and I, the principal at Hawthorne, we work very closely together because we're the 2 elementary schools. So we like to communicate, we like to keep things the same while also recognizing our very unique communities. So you are going to see some things that are identical and some things that have nothing to do with one another. And also I want to point out that I'm watching on my other computer the notes that are coming through in the comment section. I'm going to, as we go through, I think it's important to point out that although not every word is in there, there are some things in consideration. I'll take, for example, the staggering of arrival, recess, lunch, and dismissal. I saw in the comments that someone asked, is anyone taking into consideration the staff? So I want everyone to know that in the staggering of the kids' arrival, that also includes staggering of the staff for breaks, for lunches, so that I know you won't see each other as much as possible, but also know that we are taking it into consideration so that you have your distance also. All right, Lee Hilborn, thank you for volunteering. It's all you.
Well, thanks. I'll be very brief. The good news, as you indicated, Mr. Bugbee, is that because there's so much coordinated, there's not all that much I have to share that's new. I think I do want to comment, because there was an earlier comment to the board about everybody taking their own responsibility and assuring that. We had an impassioned medical meeting with the city council a week ago, and really we insisted that masking be enforced. And at the Health and Safety Commission yesterday that Mrs. Marcus attended as well, we heard that the ambassadors and park rangers and others have contacted in the last week 9,300 people in the city of Beverly Hills, and they've actually issued 61 citations. So there is activity out there to make it a little bit more normal to be wearing a mask. And if anybody needs, code enforcement can be reached at 285-1119. And that came out of the last meeting. So again, I think—
I'm writing it down, Lee. I'm writing it down.
Okay. 310-285-1119. And there's certain hours they're available, but if you need them, they're available to assist. So as I said, for the most part, the initiatives at Horace Mann, and I'm wearing my Horace Mann colors, by the way, in case you didn't notice that. I learned that at the last time when we got together. So
I noticed it. I noticed.
Okay, good. That we too realize the challenges of working with elementary school students. We talked about the issues of staggered arrivals and staggered departures, and making sure that parents haven't left before whatever the screening process is that's going to happen. We talked about expanding waiting areas so that people can wait in safe areas, changing some of the gating and so on, particularly off of Charlieville. We talked also about, and it was sort of touched on, but having a Google form or something to screen that students could answer those screening questionnaires before they arrive, and so on. We did talk about thermometers, and like others, we talked about using thermal scanners. Thermal scanners may be, if we've identified some, and if they'll meet the requirements, they're not that much more expensive, and multiple people can go through and be scanned at the same time. So that may alleviate some of the queuing issues and the other issues between entrance and exits. We indicated that that we were going to open up all the available space, both for students and then also separate entrance for teachers. But if we can do something to speed that up through having those questionnaires completed at home, and the and the temperature checks being done efficiently, we think that maybe that might help. So I think that as we experiment and learn more as things go forward and what others are doing, that may be an opportunity. Otherwise, probably 10 to 20 thermal scanners, thermometers that would be used both locally. We recommended if students are going to have temperature checks then on campus or at campus, that those be done before leaving the car as well. So those are some of the big pieces already talked about, were the large signs, the COVID-19 signs and symptoms that would be available, and also to make sure that masks and sanitizers and all the PPE are available for students and staff who need them if they happen to have forgotten. So I think we touched on a lot of the same issues. We talked about pop-up tents, both for rainy days and also on overly sunny days when shade is needed. Also making sure that hand washing stations are available throughout the campus and so on. We did talk a little bit about antigen testing. Antigen testing is coming along. We think it's going to be available in the next month, which will allow for rapid testing, not the kinds of things that we've been seeing lately, and that if that can be integrated, if there's an app that tests antigen, that asks the questionnaire, and basically you can integrate the thermal information, the thermal scanner, temperature information, there may be a kind of a way to do it. My understanding is that people are working on some apps for that. Again, I talked a little bit about the entrance and the exits. and symptom checks. So I think that those were the big things that we talked about. We talked also about making sure there was an isolation room where that a place has been identified that would be separate from the nurse's office, where routine medical and other kinds of encounters would occur. So we talked about most of that. And I think, Mr. Bugby, you were going to talk about restroom monitoring, right?
Yep, let me go, whoever's scrolling, can you go back up? Okay, so the isolation room we got, whoa, go back down. And keep going, stop.
Right there.
Okay, so the isolation room we talked about, the entrance and exits, as Hawthorne was discussing, we're talking about opening all entrances and exits, which everyone knows includes more playground aids to supervise. Restroom monitoring, we're thinking the same thing, and this is gonna, we all know, well, it's not just elementary school. Elementary school, we need to keep an eye on kids in the restroom for one reason. Middle school and high school maybe for different reasons. But knowing that we only want one child in the restroom at a time is going to keep us safe, but it's also going to be a heck of a challenge, because going from room to room, how do you know what other rooms are in the restroom? So that's on our radar. We're working on that. Additional spaces at Horace Mann. We have a beautiful multi-purpose room, lots of courtyards. We have the decks in the B building, which are not used for anything right now, but are an option. Library, auditorium. Everyone knows about the beautiful locker rooms at Horace Mann that as of right now are empty space. And we're talking about ways we can use those. Okay, scroll up, please. Signage, same thing as everyone else. We want signage all over the place in terms of directions to go. Oh, and there's directional traffic. Arrows pointing in the right directions, signage about face masks. And because I'm last, I'll cut it for brevity. Same signage, all schools. Directional traffic in the B building. For those of you who know Horace Mann, we're talking about the B building, the two side stairways going up, the one middle stairway coming down. Remember, everything is staggered, so it's not 2 grade levels at once. It would be 1 grade level per break. Compliance team representative, Chris Regan, assistant principal. Chris, if you're out there, I haven't told you that yet. Congratulations, you've got a new job. Exposure, communication and notification would be handled through that compliance team. Cleaning, we've already talked about with everyone else. Porous furniture, all porous furniture would be removed from classrooms. Let me just tap onto a few other things. I know that there was discussion at middle school about rotation of classrooms. I also want to bring up at elementary school, we do rotate for specials. So elementary teachers, elementary parents, and anyone else out there, so that you know that is a consideration. It's been a topic of discussion. We've already spoken with specials teachers to see what other options might be available. I am a big believer in having the boots on the ground people help to solve the problems, because they know the details much better than we do. Also, one of the questions that I saw in the comment section, I want to, I love a fun story. The question was, and how are we going to keep kids being honest when we do a symptoms check in the morning? We always say the kids are the easiest part of our job. A fun story to prove this is, I see many people laughing. One of my favorite kids of all time who had many issues going on in her life. She was gone, her and her twin sister were gone from school on a Thursday and Friday. The next morning, mom brought them to the office and I said to her, "Oh, sweetheart, I missed you last week." And she screamed as loud as she could, "Mr. Bugby, Mama was lying to you. We went to Disneyland for the weekend for our birthday." So elementary people, point is, yes, we want to keep the kids honest, but I think this goes back to the community in that we all need to be honest about what is going on in order to keep everyone safe. Horace Mann out.
Awesome. And thank you, everybody. I also want to add that there was another group that met that was a social emotional mental health group, and they have a lot of great work that they want to share. And so we're going to do that at another time, and that'll be added into our reopening plan as well. This is part of the physical reopening plan. As you can see, this is all going to come together to be one big document. But I think you can see that the exercise is, you see a lot of consistency, which is what we want, but it does have to be implemented differently because of the different school site challenges. And so that's why going to the high school, this was a good training ground for us. And when we go to that larger environment with some construction and some added challenges, we will be ready for that when that happens. So again, I want to thank everybody for being part of this. We're excited to continue to move forward and to refine these recommendations. And I would like to turn this back over to Mrs. Hacker and the Board of Education.
Thank you, Dr. Breggy. So I just want to make sure, is Mr. Mead still with us? Mr. Mead, did you want to add anything or you're good?
No, I would genuinely like to say how eye-opening it was to work with so many perspectives and professionals. It's true we didn't look at the high school yet, but a lot of the things that we learned from BV are very informative for how we are going to address, opportunities and challenges at the high school. So we're looking forward to it, and the good news is the reason we weren't able to go is because of the incredible work happening right now with our facilities team. The older buildings are getting an incredible facelift, and obviously very hopeful, and from what I understand is the case, that the construction is working and working quickly. So, by the end of next year, the high school, or this academic year coming up, the high school probably will be a very different looking place in a really good way. So looking forward to working with this team if they come to the high school, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to go to BV and work with them for weeks. So it's been great.
Thank you, Mr. Mead, for clarifying that and for being part of today's discussion. On that note, I'd like to thank everyone on the think tank and the committee for being here with us tonight, and also for all of the work that you've done. It's been quite informative for us to hear all your recommendations tonight. And at this point, I'd like to turn it over to my colleagues for questions and comments. So we will start with Mr. Margot.
Yes, thank you, team. So I rapidly jotted stuff down, and then I started running out of room on my page. So this is in no particular order. I'm really glad that we're spending the time planning on how to figure out how to come back. Early as of 6 o'clock tonight, we are still on the rise in LA County, new cases and more deaths. But I think it's important to be prepared. I want to make sure that we continue to focus on how we're going to start delivering a quality education come August 17th. I hope Dr. Breggy and the other side of this puts as much effort into that as you have put into how to come back, because I think it's going to be a while before we come back. The temperature checks, a lot is put on the temperature checks, and I'm a little concerned about that, because a lack of a fever does not indicate whether someone is carrying. We all know that. And even if somebody has a fever, it doesn't mean they obviously have COVID. They can have a fever. So I'm wondering on how much time and money we want to spend on investing in temperature checks. Also, they're becoming more prevalent all over town. Everywhere you go, they're checking your temperature, doctor's appointments, things like that. I don't know if it has helped stop the spread. If knowing people's temperature is helping to stop the spread. If we're continuing to rise in LA County and we have more and more temperature checks, I just wonder about its effectiveness. And I don't want to say get rid of it. I'm just wondering how effective do we really think that particular part of it is going to be. Plus, I'm concerned about the amount of time all of this will take in the mornings to get kids and staff can get through it pretty quickly, but to get kids onto campus is how much time we're actually going to be spending. Will kids have to be, if it's a half-hour process or whatever it winds up being, do they have to come to school early? Does school not start until everybody's on site? I wonder if those questions were talked about and how those will be worked out. Those are just things that popped into my head. The county, is the county supplying signs universally to school districts, Lake Ho or anything? Have they discussed, or every district is on their own to make these signs and 6-foot placards and all that stuff?
Yes, so districts are on their own when it comes to that. We do have some thermometers that and temperature takers, the gauges that are coming in, and I don't know what the quality of those are, but those are coming in from the state as well as PPE. But signage and things like that, because each site is so different and unique, it is up to the school, and it's part of what they would expect for you to use for the COVID-19 money.
Right, and I only say that because if the county is requiring us to have this signage, then perhaps they should be the ones that are actually supplying schools with the signage, so as not to give us an unnecessary and very disposable product that will have to be replaced, after kids trample over it on all that on a regular basis. So I was just asking about that. Has anything been discussed about, there's two things. Kids and filling out forms or answering questions before coming onto campus, those list of symptom questions. What do we feel the reliability of those answers are going to be? We have a strong movement in our city to get back to our campuses. And I'm wondering if little things might tend to get overlooked to make sure that kids can remain in school. And I'm wondering the effectiveness of either asking kids or asking parents to fill out a Google Doc. Are we sure, was that discussed about the reliability of those answers?
Can I jump in and talk about the temperature checks, Noah?
Sure.
Because I know you had that question out there. So the public health order doesn't require a temperature check, but it does require the wellness check, which is not a written questions. It's verbal, asked and answered. So that's going to take 15, 20, 30 seconds per kid. And it's going to take about 1.5 seconds with a digital scanner to scan their forehead. So you might as well do that if you're already having to stop each kid and go over the wellness check. The thing with the temperature is that, before COVID, you don't want your kid being sent to school. We don't want kids being sent to school with a fever. So right. Parents were already under that mandate that if your kid had a temperature, don't send them to school. So if you get a kid that shows up on campus with a temperature, COVID or not, that kid should probably be going home anyway. So that, coupled with the fact that the temperature check takes a split second while they're doing the wellness check, it's to us, it seemed kind of like a no-brainer not to do. Now, there is some cost to purchase the scanners, and you need to have them readily available. And I think for BV, we were thinking somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 just to have on hand, because you need it for not only for the students, but for the staff as well. And then the nurse and then the isolation room, they all need to have them. And then you need to have backups. But I don't think that's a huge cost. And the bigger cost is probably who's going to be doing these checks. But again, they're going to be doing the wellness check already anyway.
Okay, so Stephen, excellent answer. Thank you very much for shedding some light on that. I can see how it would work. So as far as the wellness checks, any of the medical professionals here, do we feel that there's a reliability with kids answering those questions, that there tends to be, that we'll get pretty accurate information on that?
I mean, I think what we were thinking is that it was going to be on the ownership of each parent. Every parent who's going to be sending their child to in-person education has some stake in the game. They want to make sure all other children are going to be safe and not be symptomatic. So we felt that have some ownership to the community to make sure that they're sending their child to the school not being sick. Now, in regards to the temperature, how it works, if a child comes in and the temperature scan says that they're at a normal temperature, but then the teacher starts seeing something different, and then the child is sent to the nurse's station, and now the temperature is higher, that delta of a temperature is a big thing. So that means that there's some process going on. Not every child is probably gonna have their temperature taken when they're leaving home. We're all parents, sometimes we're just trying to get out of the house to get on and to the school on time. So we felt that temperature checks should really be done at school, as well as the health questionnaire to be done on reliably, hopefully by the parents.
Thank you, Aaron. I bring it up because I think that, you know, kids used to fake an illness to get out of a test, and this is almost the reverse. They're going to fake being well to get into a test, right?
And
to get into
Lee,
school.
did you want to add something?
Well, I just did a little review of this because one of the other questions asked is even how effective are they, the temperature checking and the temperature and the questionnaire and temperature together. When it was related to, if you look at the data on air travel and screening and so on from some of the literature that's been recently reported, it's anywhere from 25 to 40%. The other advantage of the temperature checking that was talked about is that it will encourage people to be more honest in reporting on the symptom questionnaire. So they kind of go together in that respect. And then the other issue about the streamlining, effective thermal scanners, you know, I've gone through airports internationally that have them, and you just walk right by and it can do hundreds of people in a minute. And so if we can get something like that, that it may be able to make that queuing process a lot better.
Thank you, Lee. That actually helps a lot. I appreciate it. My last question was there any discussion about, we heard from a lot of faculty tonight during public comment, and they were pretty loud and clear, and I absolutely respect what they're saying. Has it been discussed on what would make staff feel comfortable coming back? We think there'll be a certain metric that will make students feel comfortable. And I think if the schools do open up and kids and parents see other kids going to school and cases don't spike per se, that will be okay. But what will make our faculty and staff, because they're the adults, they're more at risk, what will make them comfortable? Was that discussed? Because all of this only works if our staff is back on campus. So I'd like to hear if anybody has discussed that or has an opinion about that.
I think the answer is yes. I'll start. The answer is definitely yes. I think the temperature checking to some extent was consideration to the staff and making sure belts and suspenders that we're double checking that kids aren't coming to school sick, right? So back to your earlier question. And I think the other thing is we've talked preliminarily about staged reopenings. Just like the county staged their reopening, does the school stage their reopening? And one thought there is the first step to getting students back on campus is to get the teachers back on campus, and can they get comfortable being on campus? So I heard a lot of complaints about that, but if we ever want to get the students back on, I think the first step before you throw 500 kids at them would be get them on campus, and can we make that work? And then you stage it and start to bring some of the students back. I don't know if anybody wants to add to that.
I'll add to that as a teacher. Obviously, this is a very hot topic right now amongst the teachers and staff. And I think that it's important to note that, and actually Frank and I were talking about this just yesterday, or the other day, that the idea of choice, right, makes a huge difference in this component of this discussion, because if you do have teachers that are comfortable with going back, right, you're kind of having them go in to kind of like see how it goes, right? Like test the waters, see how it goes, see what it's like, see what's really happening on the ground. And I think that sets a precedent for a lot of other teachers who, for various reasons, all legitimate, right, don't feel comfortable going in yet. And I think that if we had that choice, it would help kind of maybe temper some of the fears that are out there about what it's like to actually go back and be there, and what it actually looks like for a teacher. So I don't know if I'm allowed to say it, but I said it. So I don't know if that helps, but I think that would make a huge difference, because for someone like me who is comfortable going back, right? Like I live alone, I'm pretty healthy, I don't have kids, I don't have things, a lot of these external factors that are really legitimate reasons for people to be afraid. And so I don't know, I feel like if I went back and I could talk to some of my colleagues and say like, okay, this is what it's actually like. This is what the bathrooms are like. This is how many custodians I saw. This is, you know, I think that that kind of takes away a lot of the mystery for staff. But that's what I have to say about that.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Hacker, I'm done for now.
Thanks, Mr. Margot. Mr. Spitz.
Yes, first of all, I want to also thank each and every one of the committee members for all the time and effort they put in. I think it's wonderful that you did that, and this is, I think this is great information to have, and to be able to utilize this information when it actually comes time to come back. We all know that whatever in whatever way we return to campus, it has to be practical. The protocols that the committee has come up with, it seems to me, will absolutely require some major staggering of starting school and finishing school, ending school, in other words, arriving and departing. And so it's going to be major. It's going to be some major changes, and from what normal was before the pandemic. Also, I think the last point that was brought up, and that is under what conditions will all teachers be willing to return. That's key. That's key, because we can't return to campus with a percentage of teachers that aren't willing to come back. We can't do that. We have to have all the teachers willing to come back, and that means that they have to feel that it's really safe, that it's really, really safe. So when that's going to happen, who knows? The other thing I want to mention is that it strikes me as ironic that before the pandemic, for purposes of safety, we developed comprehensive protocols for our campuses. And now, also for purposes of safety, we're contemplating protocols, and some of these protocols are not consistent with the earlier protocols. It's a different, of course, we're talking about two different kinds of safety. And yet, safety is number one as far as our priorities. So it's going to be challenging. Let me put it that way. It will be challenging. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Spitz. Mrs. Walker-Schuman.
Thank you. I agree with my colleagues to my virtual right. Thank you for your input. I totally agree. I really want to thank the think tank as well, because this kind of work it's so important. And that was kind of what drew me into the district and ended up with me sitting in this particular chair. So it's really important work. We really, really value those of you who step up and are willing to dedicate the time, be volunteers, and do all of the work to help form or inform our decision making on things like this. So I really, I appreciate you. Bravo. Thank you for stepping up and giving us such good guidance. In terms of the plan, I think it's important to talk. I love what Mr. Chechel said. I think coming back in phases is really important. I don't think it's going to be even like a half group on campus, to be perfectly honest. With the number of kids that we're going to have doing BHUSD, live at BHUSD, that looks like a 3 cohort return. And I think that's going to need to be staggered also. So, I would imagine that it's going to be a staggered start time. I guess my question is, I spent so many hours this year before we kind of shut down in carpool at Beverly Vista. My question is, could we do the temperature and wellness checks at the car instead of having kids get out of the car and just do it really quickly, through the, like, one person on one side with the temperature thing for the kid, and then one person on the other side with like a handheld tablet where the parent has to sign off acknowledging that none of those symptoms have been recognized in their kid, and also maybe that they have not been administered any kind of Advil or Tylenol, which would bring a fever down at the same time, just to try and keep them honest. And this is just part of the regular morning routine. They have to acknowledge it and verify every morning, and the kids get a little temperature scan before they even get out of the car. If we're phasing it and we're already, staggering it, maybe the numbers at a drop off like that would be reasonable enough to actually go through that process. And obviously that's only for drop off, when kids are released, they don't need to go through all of that. So I wonder if that's something that was discussed or would be possible. And then the other piece that I feel like, we didn't really.
Mrs. Walker-Schuman, I think Mr. Allen wants to respond to that question.
So only if you want a response. I mean, I didn't know if you were asking to have a response, or because we did discuss that.
Yeah, no, happy to.
Yeah, we actually did discuss that idea and that option. But the thought was that just given traffic, the way that the traffic patterns, and you're out there, you're right, you're out there every single morning opening doors with me. And just given that the way that the traffic patterns would be, and the way that it would block up traffic. And then we even asked parents to drop off a half an hour early, and we opened the library an hour early, and still parents dropped off in the last 5 to 10 minutes before school. I mean, they just chose that five minutes, you know what I mean? And so we just felt like parents wouldn't actually drop off a half an hour early to make sure we could get through that screening, that they would all still wait for that last 5 minutes, pour in 5 minutes all at once. And then we wouldn't get kids to class on time. All of those kids would be consistently tardy for their classes. That beginning of the day class. So we just really felt like lining them up on the field and push them through 5 at a time would be faster.
Okay.
Also, can I just add to that real quick, Tristan?
Absolutely.
That, I don't know, maybe Kevin could tell us like what percentage of the student body shows up in Carline, but there's a fair amount of kids that are either, that are walking, whether their parents are dropping them off a block or two away, or they're just coming from the neighborhood. And so doing the Carline is a great idea, except then you cannot account for all of those kids. And so you're missing like a whole portion of it, or it's just going to be, the numbers are going to be off.
Yeah, or you'd have to duplicate the effort, have something at the entrance and the car line, which, maybe that's not manageable.
And then you need twice as many people scanning and temperature checking.
Right.
And
I think
this is where each campus might be different, right? BVMS has a big field. So when we pictured it and having 5 or 6 check-in tables, there's plenty of room. There's no concern about squishing. I think, Sarah, you wanted to jump in to talk about Hawthorne would be different, right?
Right. So we put that in our proposal that we needed to do some staggered either drop-off times, and that Rexford was big enough with some staggered drop-off time. We're talking about a split in how many students we have even coming onto campus with a hybrid model, and that we would need students to stay in their car with their parents and not be released from their parents until they've passed that check. So we wanted to do it in Carline, and then if we have a walking population, that there's also an ability to check while they walk in.
Yeah. I like it. I think I love that there's different options, and obviously there's no one size fits all. So we're going to have to figure out what works for each campus and each population. So, that's terrific. The things that aren't addressed though with the wellness check and the temperature check are asymptomatic people, adults and kids. And one of the things that that I didn't hear really covered yet, and maybe that's, future work or for later discussion, is testing. I've heard some discussions about random groups of people tested, in a kind of rolling basis, both of teachers and of students. Even the testing, we don't know, or maybe one of you can say what the reliability is, because with the antibody testing, I know sometimes it wasn't, it was like 50%, which is not great. But I definitely think that ought to be part of the consideration going forward, when we are talking about coming onto campus, because I think that actually is going to inform a lot. And I think what people don't realize, if you've read the public health order and you consider the size of our district, really what it amounts to is 3 kids in any one campus will close a school, and any one school that closes the whole district. And I think that's really, really important to keep in mind. This is why we need to get it right. It's why we need to be more proactive in our planning and a little more conservative in how we decide to return, because we could within 2 weeks be completely shut down again, and nobody wants to have that. So, I mean, those are my thoughts. I appreciate the work. You guys did a tremendous job. Thank you for informing the decision making and for helping our administrative teams make the decisions. To really figure out the best way to return. I think like wearing mask, the one driving factor that's going to make the difference between success and failure of all of these different things is compliance. It's compliance by the teachers, it's compliance by the parents, it's compliance by the kids. It's everyone playing their part and doing their best, hopefully with the intent that as a community we can succeed if we're all willing to make a little bit of a sacrifice. That's really going to be the secret to success. So I really hope we can depend on our community to also meet us where we are, and to help, solve all of these issues really as we try to move forward. That's all for me.
Okay, Mrs. Marcus.
Lee, do you want to talk about the testing for a second? Because just on a piece. Sorry.
Yeah, sure. I'll mention that briefly. I mean, I think we've seen all kinds of challenges with testing right now. The antibody testing is not for this purpose. So right now what we have is a molecular testing, but there's already been 2 the FDA have approved for antigen testing, which is for the viral proteins. And they're coming pretty fast. They can be done at the point of care. Right now they require instruments, but there's some newer ones that are going to be able to be read visually, just like a pregnancy test. And hopefully they're going to be in the order of $10 or $15, maybe less, if in fact they're produced. So I think that we're seeing that antigen testing will probably be what's being used. There was a paper, I'm happy to share all of these with a group that's just coming out, that recommended, this was related to university testing, that said, at least right now, that you need to do that kind of testing every other day. But if it's fast and cheap, then that would be certainly an option. And I could see, I was talking today to a friend of mine at Stanford, and they're working on an app like, one of these that basically will integrate the screening and the temperature checking and the antigen testing. So you might drop off a specimen, you might collect that when you go home, right, on exit. And then what would happen was, those would get processed or evaluated at night, and that would get integrated with the temperature check and the screening in the morning, and you get a green or red light on your app. And there's 6,000 elementary schools in California, and my guess is that we don't have to come up with everything, because I think some of these new high-tech solutions, we're talking about what we have to do now with what we know now, but I have a feeling that some of this stuff is going to come along hopefully in the next month or 2, because as the antigen testing rolls out and some of the technology people are developing things, there's going to be a way to integrate that in a way that we're not thinking about just yet.
And Lee, just to kind of just go off what you just said, just very briefly, is that, there are schools in LA County that are not on the monitoring list. So many of them are starting with a hybrid. And so they still have to follow the public health order. And so we're going to be watching and working with those schools as well to see how they're handling those. So we do have a benefit there. And then back to Noah's point, I think it's important, as this data is being collected, how reliable is it? How is it being done? How is it being used? We're fortunate that at least that's happening around us so that we can see how that's going.
Yeah, and I just like Lee's, that was something I learned from the task force, was the antigen testing from Lee. And so if you think about it, if we knew in 50, you know, we're waiting for these test results to come back, whether you have the virus for 6, 7, 10 days, if you knew in 15 minutes whether someone's infected, that is very much a game changer in terms of, like, I've heard a lot of letters that said we have to wait for a vaccine. I think a quick test like this that's relatively accurate and relatively cheap could be a big game changer for the whole county, not just our school district. So there is some optimism there. And I've heard folks say, I don't want to come back till there's a vaccine. There are other things that could help us.
The other thing, just it was since you asked, that the antigen testing that are coming on the market, they have somewhere, some have reported anywhere from 85 to 96 or 7% sensitivity. They're pretty specific for COVID-19. So I think they'll only get better, and so they're not bad. And with regular testing, they will be as good. Bill Gates said today, I heard that if you can't get a result back in 24 or 48 hours max, it's kind of useless. So I think for what we're seeing, that the antigen testing, the rapid testing, or at least overnight testing, so you have an answer in the morning, is going to be the answer.
And just real quick, I want to make sure,
Okay.
Dr. Breggy, you said schools that are not in LA County, right? You said there are schools that are not in LA County that are planning for their return, and we're going to help use them as a guidepost.
There are schools, school districts within LA County that are not on the monitoring list, that are going back in session. Not every school district in LA County is out. So there are school districts that are going back. And
Okay,
In LA County?
yeah,
Yeah.
not in LA
That,
County.
But
Not-
it's
in-
my understanding that there are some in LA County that are. I'll double check and let you know. But it was my understanding that some small school districts that were in LA County that are not on the monitoring list. But I'll find out and let you know.
Okay, so I want to just go back to board member Mr. Krishanian. Mrs. Marcus, I'm going to defer to him first, and then you'll go next, because I made the mistake of skipping Mr. Krishanian. I want to apologize for that again. I didn't have my full screen out, so I wasn't looking at you, and then I just realized that I did that. So I apologize, Mr. Krishanian. Please forgive me. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I'd just like to say thank you to all the think tanks for all this difference, for all 3 of the schools. I mean, all 4 of the schools, for putting in all their time and volunteering to make sure that all of our students have the best experience possible when we do go back. These people put in hours on top of hours to make sure that everything is pitch perfect, every little detail they go into. And I personally want to say thank you so much, because that's a big part of why all of the students are here. So thank you guys.
Thank you, Mr. Krishanian. May I move on with Mrs. Marcus? Is that it? Do you have any other questions, Mr. Krishanian, for the group?
Okay, well, first of all, let me thank everybody that has joined in the think tank and has given of their time and their expertise to think of outside the box, think within the box of how we can go back to school whenever that is going to be allowed. I really applaud many of the things that you've been looking at, and how you carefully tried to think of everything that you can. And yet, no matter how hard you try to think of things that are there, there's always something that's still not, we haven't even thought about. And of course, sometimes just being in the situation itself, we discover things that we might have missed. But the way you guys are working, I don't know how many of those things you're going to miss, because you've really been pretty thorough so far. But like I say, you can try to think of everything, and sometimes you never really do find everything. I would like to question a little bit about, you were talking about the classrooms and the 6 feet and the arrangement of the chairs and so on for the teachers. What approximately did you find with this arrangement? You remove all the extraneous furniture and so on that you don't need. How much room did you really have, and how many students approximately could you get in a classroom? That's my concern, because according to protocol, when we go back, we have to have 6 feet of distance spacing, and the teacher and her desk and so on. How many kids are we really going to be able to get in a classroom under ideal conditions? And I wondered if anybody, when you could answer that question.
Yeah, so in the kindergarten classroom, we had 10 spaces for a setup, and there's actually room. If we took out, we did this kind of quickly. Sarah and I did this pretty quickly yesterday. But if you took out a couple of the other pieces of furniture, you could fit in probably one more, right, Sarah? Maybe like one more in that classroom. And that's a really small, like, I think that's probably one of the smallest classrooms on our campus. And so I would say 10 to 11 in those classrooms. And then in the second grade classroom that had kind of that U configuration, I think we had 11. Did we have 10 or 11?
Yeah, sorry, I just want to jump in for a second. I met with Ken Haas before we all came as part of the think tank to Hawthorne, and we looked at the smallest classrooms for each grade level, still meeting like the minimum requirements for space, but we definitely have classrooms at Hawthorne that are different in size. And so we picked a second grade, a kindergarten, and a fifth grade classroom, and the goal was based on class size to be able to get half. So initially in the classroom that you saw with like the yoga mats on the floor, we were able to easily put 11 or 12, 6 feet apart at tables. And then Jocelyn and I went back in to see if we could like reorganize it and look at it on yoga mats. Just because the yoga mats are larger, it took up more space and we could only get 10. But in the second grade classroom that's U-shaped, there's enough for 10 or 11 desks in there, figuring that we could remove the teacher desk and make sure that there's half of that 23 in the second grade. And in the fifth grade classroom, the ones that had like the yellow and green buckets on the desk, there's 15 setups, so that in a classroom of 29, we could make sure that half the students could come at a time, still with 6 feet. There would definitely be more convenient if we could move the teacher's desk around, or to utilize maybe a smaller bookshelf of some kind, but we did take out all of the tables where we would be like reading or working together, those U tables that are in every elementary classroom, because we just can't get that close to students. And because of that, it allowed us to say, well, we can't really use these tables anyway, why don't we get rid of those and make more space?
Okay, well, the reason that I'm thinking of all that is, you know, I'm familiar with the classrooms in terms of the sizes and that. And if we do go back to cohorts, I am hoping that we can go back with only A and B, because I have to tell you, I can't imagine what the number of kids coming to school and so on in terms of the number of hours that they're going to get if you have to divide it 3 ways. So I'm hoping that these classes can accommodate half the students under the idea. And let's face it, some of them are in the ILC and they're not part of the numbers. So it may change that also. But that was the thing that I wondered if we can work that out.
Mrs. Marcus, at the middle school level, where the class sizes do tend to be a little larger, we were actually able to get 15 students, 15 desks pretty comfortably, 6 feet apart, into classrooms in the C building. So we set up a classroom in the C building, and it was pretty comfortably arranged to accommodate 15 kids. So that would accommodate pretty close to an AB.
Yeah, that's what I'm concerned about, as you can tell. Okay.
Mrs. Marcus, do you want to know about Horace Mann?
Sure.
Okay, the smallest.
Well, you're a fairly new school, so I hope it's good.
But they're all different sizes, which is convenient. Upstairs, our third grade classrooms are the smallest rooms. We squeezed 11.
Yeah.
And then over in the upper grades, in one of our fourth grade rooms, which is one of the smaller rooms, we squeezed 14.
15.
So, say again?
15.
In this smaller room, we got 15?
In the fourth grade classroom, we got 15, 6 feet apart.
Okay, so we got the 15. And that was in the smaller room in the upper grade.
So the other rooms, which might be larger, could go a little bigger. But remember, our fourth and fifth grade.
Not with another 6 feet. We couldn't go more.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying that that's your smallest room. You're talking about your smallest room is for 15. Is that right, Kat?
Correct. But
okay, well, I'm just saying that that's your smallest room.
But that's our smallest room, but we could not get another row of 6 feet distance.
No, so that's the maximum for probably all of them.
Correct.
Okay, that's why I was curious to know that. Okay, so as I say, I love the way everything is trying to be planned. I'm grateful that we're looking ahead, and I hope that what is the future now of the committee? Is the committee going to continue to meet and think of other things? I wonder what the future of the committee is right now. Do we have any future plans for you guys, or I'm just curious. I love the fact that you're on the team and that you're thinking and bringing your ideas. So I wonder.
So, Mrs. Marcus, I can tell you that we have to do an assessment of Beverly Hills High School still, so that's still open. So that's going to be some big work for us to do, and the team has been invited to be part of that, and then also the social, emotional, mental health piece that has been working. We want to meet with that group again. But what staff needs is we need time to get this together and get this going. I mean, custodians have a plan. They've been working on a plan, and it's now that time where we need to work. And this is what we're doing next week. We have a retreat with our administration so that we can then take recommendations and work with our custodial staff who already have been working on this as well. So it's kind of melding those things together. So I think that over time, things will be changing with the public health order. And so I think maybe even checking in with this committee again is going to be important when things begin to change. But for right now, we really have to start working with our existing staff to put these things in place. And I do want to make a correction, because it was, there are some schools that are going back in LA County, and it's because they were able to get a waiver. But it is by county. And so unless your schools are doing that, then I just want to make that retraction that was not correct. But there are some special circumstances where some districts that are smaller, that have a completely different setting, will be attempting to go back. And we'll be looking at just outside of LA County as well for those few counties that are not going back. To see what they're doing, because not every county, and that's what I meant to say, and I apologize, not every county in the state is on the watch list. So
no, I know that. Okay, well, I think that you've answered. I just want to again compliment the committee, thank them for their hard work and for being able to look at some of the things that we need to be aware of and handle. So I look forward, and as Dr. Briggy said, from now on, it's up to us to carry on the hard work, and that's going to be the real problem, and have time to really be prepared is the main concern, that when it's time those kids are coming back. I would like to point out one thing also, and that I don't know which one of you mentioned it, but the concern of the teachers. Even though it's safe to bring back the kids, the half of the kids, we don't know, and I think maybe it was Mr. Spitz who said something about the fact that the teachers themselves have to be on board, and I'm worried so many of them have so many issues that what's going to happen with the teachers. So I thank you for everything.
Thank you again, Mrs. Marcus, for those comments and questions, and to the committee, of course, for providing guidance. I do have a question. I want to circle back. I remember watching and being, I guess there's been a few meetings with LA County where they specifically talked about LA schools, LA County schools not having lunch served on campus. And Dr. Duarte talked about how the hope would be, the idea, the planning would circulate around having students if they were, free and reduced lunch. If a school was providing free and reduced lunch, that the students would receive those lunches as they exited off campus. And for those students who were bringing lunch, that would be highly discouraged. So just kind of wondering, because I heard the whole theme about lunch, cafeteria, space being an issue or a concern. Is that something that, the administration is looking to incorporate as part of the day, operation as if we were to go back, or is that something that you're slowly going to transition in? Because it sounded like it was going to be part of something that we would go back to. And so I want to get clarity for that, because I'm a little confused about why we're talking about that, as it seems that last time I understood it from LACO that that would not be an option for schools to consider.
And it is an option if you can get creative about staggering, if you can do a lot of your, if you are outside and you are physically separated and physically distanced. I know that some school districts have made a decision to reduce the number of minutes so that they still met the ed code requirements, but they have, it's the minimum. And so that then kids do go home for lunch. And again, some school districts in LA County and other places have a really small footprint of where their school is. And so they're very limited on, where they can have lunch. Some school districts I know are making the decision to have lunch in their classroom where they are already, physically distanced. When they come back, they'll be ready to do that. There's gonna be a variety of ways to do that. Is it a good practice for students to then take that lunch and go home? Yeah, it's whatever the configuration that once we start to configure students back, what are we going to, you're going to take from one thing to get something else, just like anything else that we've done. School districts that are doing that are reducing their instructional minutes so that they can just either hand students a lunch on their way out, or they could eat lunch at home.
And can I jump in? The Horace Mann team came up with a great idea. Kat, this is your thing. You want to share it? No? All right, fine. We're talking about getting an app that the kids can call HM Eats, and they can order lunch from the cafeteria on their iPads or their laptops and have it delivered to their classroom. Just a little out of that.
This is Beverly Hills. We have to have room service.
Well, the point of that was, I believe in the guidelines, they said they wanted to prevent commingling with other cohorts or other classes. So when you are leaving your classroom and you're transitioning to another area, for example, a cafeteria, which in Horace Mann is on the smaller side, it can get very crowded. And then you're going to transition again to another place to have your lunch. So we would be eliminating those transitions to prevent that commingling. And then students still would be able to get a lunch, but instead of transitioning 2 or 3 times somewhere else, they would just stay in their classrooms or transition elsewhere. And that lunch could be delivered to them and would be packed in the cafeteria where there would be no students. That was the point of having that as a strategy.
The other part for us, we also spoke about eating lunches in our classrooms. Once we have a common area and students are going in and out, even though we can stagger it, if anyone ends up testing positive, then it's all of those students that have been in that same space. And one of the things that we spoke about was that large space, putting so many kids in and out in a day could force a shutdown more quickly. So we're looking at boxed lunches. It's something that when we talked about the options committee, Heather from Food Services spoke about beautifully about like how she really could help and support any of the options that we needed. Something that Kat was talking about also, that she said she could do that, talking about box lunches, talking about carts in classrooms. So I think we do have options.
Okay. So what about, so I'm assuming then the teachers would also have to obviously eat in their classrooms if this was the arrangement, because the children could not be left unsupervised, and then creating that space.
Before the teachers jump on you, no.
Well, I'm just asking, obviously if the students are in the classroom, that has never been done before. Playground aids, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. Let's see, there was another question that I had. What about utilizing the space? Did the committee look at the space outside of the classroom, just outside space? Parents often ask, how is that space going to be utilized, if at all? I'm wondering if that was a consideration given for any of these activities that you all spoke of.
I could jump in on that to start. I mean, obviously that's a great idea, and we live in Southern California, but it ultimately it can't be a primary spot because it's not going to be consistent. There's going to be hot days, there's going to be rainy days, there's going to be poor air quality days. It's just not a consistent enough space, but it's a great backup if something had to go offline.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that. I know that that's a very common question asked. From
Can I also add, Mrs. Hacker,
Yes.
that, I know a lot of people have had some really great ideas about, put up a tent, put up a, and we've gone that route before, like with the high school, even looking at some temporary situations with some of the construction. And I just want to remind people too, that hospitals and schools have a completely different process in place for putting up those types of structures, the permanent and temporary structures that is through DSA, that sometimes takes months up to a year. And so I'm glad that you brought that up, Mrs. Hacker, because it does sound like it's great. We need a little bit of shade, but we've got a lot of open space. But we just don't have the luxury like a corporation or a business. They can just put up what they need when they want to. But working with kids, there are some really highly regulatory restrictions for us that we have to follow, and with a lot of oversight and guidance, I'll put it that way, to ensure safety. So it just isn't as easy as putting up a tent or buying a tent.
And that's why I asked, because it's a common question, as I was saying, and I think it's complex in explaining that DSA, and we have so much oversight over a public institution like ours, that it requires us to have a thorough plan ahead of time that takes a lot of maybe months to plan ahead and to get approvals on. So thank you for clarifying that to both you, to you, Dr. Breggy. Okay, I don't have any more questions. If there's anything else, Mr. Margot has, I see his hand going up. Mr. Margot, and
Yes.
then I do have one question before I just finalize this, Dr. Breggy. If after Mr. Margot's comments, if you could just tell us what you anticipate will come after this presentation. What do you anticipate the team providing or the board doing? Thank you.
Okay, so I just wanted to ask if anybody from any of the teams can hit this if you want. Was it discussed about siblings that may be home from college in certain households, and then other kids in the schools that either that would wind up going to preschools or private schools in the same household? And is there, because we can check the kids that come to our campus, but if one of those kids contracts it, is there an outlet where the families have to let us know? Was that discussed at all?
That's such a great question, and it's and I love that you asked that, because this is kind of there's a turning point now, that there's still, and it's unfortunate, but there's still this stigma that's attached to being positive for this virus. And so, and I think it's a hard thing that, that you basically have to, turn yourself in, so to speak. And I'm hoping that changes, because we're not going to be safe unless we're being honest with one another. And what's happening now, Noah, is, and I'm glad you brought that up, is when we closed physically in March, what was happening right before we closed was like Laura Chisholm's office and my office, we were just getting inundated with telephone calls, anonymously, telling us, somebody has arrived from another country, somebody has arrived, and they, they're not feeling well, and there's a stranger, and they're like, and what I'm worried about is just that it isn't so much people self-reporting, because that would be great if we can get people to do that and build that into our culture, that's a good thing. But we have this, and I think it's pervasive kind of everywhere, but we're starting to happen now, where we're starting to get a lot of different people communicating with us, telling us what they think or what they heard. And so that's really hard, and it's just very damaging to the operation when people start hearing things and we don't have any evidence that there's even a case, but yet it's caused kind of panic throughout. So I think that we need to build a culture to where, people are comfortable self-reporting so that the contact tracing will work. I think that's one of the reasons why, Noah, the cases are going up, because I just think that people are not being honest with, sharing who they've been around and who they've been with, because these new cases are going up. So it's something that, is definitely an issue, because our kids go home to adults, older siblings, as you mentioned, and they're working. And so there's this constant flow of people that are leaving and coming back.
So would it be beneficial to add that to the screening questions? Something like that? Would that, I don't know, I'm not.
I think we're already going to be asking, or we should be asking the kids about other members of their current household, right? I mean, you should be asking the kids if someone at home has a fever or symptomatology similar to that. I mean, it has to be brief, but that's why we wanted those signs up, especially at BV. As the kids are waiting in line, they're looking at and sort of thinking about the things that they're about to be asked, so that they can already be pre-thinking about them, so that they're not just standing there going, I don't know, so.
And Noah, I would say I'm not a doctor, but I am a data person, right? And so when we look at what the county and the state has done, they haven't always done it their best, but they're driving the reopening plan based off of data, right? So we can ask whatever questions we want, but I think we need the numbers to get to a certain level. And I think that's a part of any reopening plan should be, listen, the numbers need to be around here for us to feel comfortable that there isn't, that there's a low chance. It will be, the chance that there's no risk is impossible. But I think the point is, does it get to an acceptable risk level, and talking about where the numbers are at in the community, that we feel like, okay, we're still going to ask these questions, but at the end of the day, we need the numbers in the community to be at a certain level to reopen.
Don't the orders also require a contact tracing team?
Okay.
Yes, so that is part of the protocol, is that there is a district team, and then there's a site team as well. And so that's why this goes back to, and I think Tristan, you made this point, and so did Frank, which I think is a good one, that we have to be really careful, like this, like if and when we go back, that we've got to have it right, and we've got to make the decision to transfer back and transition the right way, because as Tristan mentioned, like 3 cases closing down, either part of like a classroom, or when a school closes. Then closing down other school, like it's just, we have to be really careful, because we're so small that the data, as Frank speaks about, there's a different impact that the data has on a smaller community than there is a larger one. So I think it's going to be really important that we watch that data and the metrics, and really have a well thought out decision about that transition period, before we do it too quickly.
I have one question. What about, I'm wondering if the group thought about this, or maybe the administration would like to jump in, but we often have students who transition into Beverly Hills Unified, not at the beginning of the school year, but maybe a month or a week after school starts, and sometimes even 6 months after school begins. So what controls or protocols have you all discussed, if any, during this COVID pandemic era, as far as, making sure that if we have students who come from, other states or other countries possibly, that we know, that they are not bringing anything new, introducing anything new to our school community that, we don't anticipate, or how are we planning for that? I guess the question, have you all thought about that?
We have, and Laura, you can actually speak to this, because right in March, we actually started to have the same discussion.
So some of these issues are addressed even just prior to the families arriving in Beverly Hills, particularly if they're traveling from outside of the country. They're required to quarantine for 14 days. Before they're allowed to even move around or do anything else. So that's in place. We do ask for documentation of that. We do ask for medical records and immunizations. As we move forward, and if a vaccine becomes available, we'll have to have a discussion about whether or not that's required for attendance in school. And also the screening protocol will be part of what we do here. So the things that we're talking about, like, are you having symptoms? Has anyone in your house had symptoms? Things like that, to make a determination whether or not they're able to start school right away, or there needs to be a delay.
Thank you, Ms. Chisholm. That's a question I often get asked, so thank you for clarifying. Okay, Dr. Brecky, back to you.
So as I mentioned, next steps, because we have so many people with their hands in this, which is great. It's wonderful. Now it's bringing that all together to make sure that our facilities and maintenance and operations people are working with our administration so that we start to embed this work so that we're not going in completely different directions. And so now that we have recommendations, we're able to do that, like a meeting with Ken Haas tomorrow to start to look at, okay, where is he at with his cleaning schedule, products he's using, and then looking at how do we incorporate this at Hawthorne and with Sarah. And so we've blocked out some administrative time for next week so that we have it all covered, whether it's a custodial issue, whether it's a administration issue, whether it's somebody that's in facilities. It's everybody in every department working together at each school site with the recommendations so that we can get that going. We've got orders already in place for many of the items that we've talked about. Putting up plexiglass and putting up areas to barriers, and it's just finalizing those things. But we just haven't, that's all in play right now. It's just tying up the loose ends right now. I think the next steps would be to bring that back to the board at the next meeting, just to show you our progress, where we're at, because there's so many things that are happening right now, just pulling them together to make sure that our arrows are all pointing in the right direction. And we will be doing that over the next 7 to 10 days.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Brady. That clarifies that question. I again want to thank the group that's here before us. Thank you for your time, everyone. This work is important and critical and part of the puzzle. So I, on behalf of the board, really thank you.
Ms. Hacker.
Who's talking?
Sorry, this is Frank. I just wanted to say something to Yoni, if I could.
Sure.
Yes.
Yoni, as the student representative, I just wanted you to know, like, how sorry we are that this is what the start of your year is going to look like. We really wanted to get you back to school, and we're going to keep fighting as hard as we can to do that. I know this isn't how you pictured your senior. I assume you're a senior.
Yes. Going into
I know this isn't how you pictured your senior year starting. And my heart really breaks for all the students that they can't come back to school right away. And I think I speak for the whole group here, the whole task force, in terms of how hard we wanted to fight to try to get you guys back, and we're going to continue to do that. But we want you back there, and we're going to do everything we can, even if you're virtual, to make this the best year ever. And I just wanted you to know that, and to know all the other students to know that as well.
I appreciate that, and on behalf of all the students, thank you honestly for everything, and for all the think tank as a whole for trying to make our experience the best that it could be.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that.
Can I just say something real quick to the board and to Dr. Breggy? I think I speak potentially for a lot of my think tank mates, and we don't think we're done. We think there's a lot more work to do, and we're here. We're happy to keep going. There's a lot more to talk about. You see, we only touched on really the surface of things today. I think Jocelyn said that earlier. So we're here. Utilize us. Thank you.
We're happy to.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move on. So thank you all. We're moving on to the consent of it's a consent calendar. May I have
Move approval of the consent calendar, and I think didn't student board member want to pull? I think it was 12 something, 12D.
I just had a question on 12D.
Okay, well, hang on.
12D is not in the consent.
Not part of the.
Sorry,
no, it's not. I'm sorry.
I think Mrs. Marcus had something to pull.
Yes, Mrs. Marcus.
I would like to pull F, H, and J.
So I'll move
Okay.
approval of the consent calendar with the exception of F, H, and J.
I'll second.
I'm sorry, Ms. Marcus, did you say J or G?
F
I
is in
heard G.
Frank, H is in Henry, and J is in
Okay,
Jerry.
thank you for clarifying. All right. Mr. Margaret just moved a second. May I, let's go for, go ahead, Ms. Marcus, you pulled discussion?
What the, don't we vote on the?
No, we need to vote, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Yes, let's may I call for the question? There's too many people talking, so I'm getting like a lot of feedback here. I'm gonna have to do this roll call style. Mr. Margot?
Yes.
Mr. Spitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker-Schuman?
Yes.
Mrs. Marcus?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. Okay, and that carries, and so now we can have discussion. Mrs. Marcus?
Well, first we have to have an motion for the, I think, I move for the approval of the contract with Burnham Benefits Insurance Company.
I'll second.
Okay, Mrs. Marcus, you had a question?
Yeah, well, I just would like to make, the question is, in doing my research on this, I found that we've had this company for about 5 years or so, and each year it's about $80,000, and maybe less a few years earlier. And I'm just wondering if the amount of work, if this is the same amount of work every year that has to repeat it and repeat it, and if it's not something that isn't as much work needed every single year because it's doing policies and platforms on insurance policies to the staff and so on. Is it required that we do the same amount of work every year? Is it something that can't be reduced? Is it always the same amount? I guess that would be a question for Mr. Roach, perhaps.
Yes, Miss Trustee Marcus. As the Affordable Care Act came into place about 4 or 5 years ago, we found it a necessity to go with Burnham because of all the compliance issues. And unfortunately, the compliance issues get more and more technical every year. So, as things change with health benefits, we may not need their services in the future, but right now things get more and more complex every year. So in most districts I've worked at, you actually have to hire a payroll technician to do this work if you don't have this kind of service to provided. So we would have to pay this kind of money out, or actually probably a little bit more, in order to get this service provided.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. I appreciate it. That's what I had a concern about.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any objections or abstentions? Okay, that carries 5-0. There's Mr. Spitz. Okay, great. So we're moving on. Next item that was pulled.
H.
H.
H is about this program called News
Right, so
LA.
we need, go ahead.
We need a motion first. I'm sorry. I will
Yes,
move
can
for
we
the
have a
approval
motion?
of the News LA District Learning Bundle quote for the year 2021.
I'll second.
Thank you. I'm concerned about this as being a new platform or a new program, how much the teachers will use this and so on and so forth, and how it came to be. What I'm concerned about is if at the end of this, we do a survey to find out just how much the teachers did use it and whether it would be something that we would want to continue with in the future, because this is a new program. And I just want to know how it came to the district. I think it needs to be explained so that everybody knows, and that if it's going to be used for very widely by all of the teachers, K through 12, I have no problem with it, but it's not a program that I would like to see continued if the teachers don't use it.
Absolutely, Mrs. Marcus. This isn't actually a new program to the district. We have utilized Newsella in previous years, predominantly grades 3 through 5 for supplemental materials in social studies and science. We've used it in middle school social studies, and we also used it with our EL program and our Title I program. Due to virtual learning, we've only extended the contract up into 9th through 12th grade to also provide, when you look at the actual resources, it provides support virtually for courses like AP Government. Also some of our science coursework where we don't have a virtual option, but we absolutely will be able to pull data at the end, closer to probably around March, to be able to bring to the Board of Education to show utilization from TK all the way up to 12th grade.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you for that explanation. But I'd like to see it studied at the end to make sure that it's not something that we just put out there and nobody uses. I'd like to make sure it's used. And I think that's reasonable.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Marcus, for that question. Any other further questions from the board on this issue? Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. That passes 5-0. Moving on, there was another.
I move approval of agreement with LACO for positive behavior interventions and support.
Oh.
I'll second.
Okay. Did you want to say something, Mr. Margot?
No,
I just seconded it.
Oh. Okay, my question on this has to do with the wording that was in the proposal. It says that this was for tier 1 and it's $18,000. And as I recall, last year I thought was tier 1. Is this now tier 2? And last year tier 1 was something like 15,600 or something like that. It was considerably less. And now in the proposal it says tier 1, $18,000. So I'm confused. Are we on tier 2 now and this is a new price? And tier 2 is more expensive than tier 1?
Thank you for that question, Mrs. Marcus. No, we are still in tier 1. As I explained to the board and when Mrs. Laurie did her presentation earlier in the year, we discussed that tier 1 is a multi-year implementation. So we're in tier 1, year 3. And so we have not moved into the second tier yet because we are still laying the foundation and implementing. The changes in the price per site, it is $4,500 per site and we have 4 sites. So that's how that's how we have the total of $18,000.
Okay. Right.
I just wanted to know how many it's per site. I did see that, and thank you for clarifying. I had the same question as Mrs. Marcus did. So that makes more sense now. But how many staff members are being trained with this tier?
I don't have the exact number
tier, this phase,
right now, but it will be it's the entire PBIS team for each site, including a coach and then teachers and site administrators. But I would have to look up the number that would tell you exactly each number. But it's about between 5 to 8 staff members per site, including a PBIS coach for each site. And we will also be rolling in the new social emotional support staff for the ILC as well. And it will be a virtual implementation until we're back in our brick and mortar buildings.
Okay, and Mr. Margot, I see your hand.
Yeah, Laura, what has any of this changed because we are not on campus? Are we approaching things differently, and has the program adopted to that, or are we just subscribing to the same old what we had last year when kids were on campus?
No, it's been totally revamped and reworked. We've had multiple meetings with the LACO staff about how we will work together to implement this virtually. And it's being adopted for virtual implementation until we're able to return to in-person instruction. So it's completely revamped.
And are there any parental components? Because a lot of the success of this is now going to be at home, and that heavily involves parents where it didn't before when it was on campus.
Correct. Yes, there is a parent component as well, home matrices and homeschool communication and support.
Okay, thank you.
Question again, one more.
Yes, Mrs. Marcus.
Well, this is year 3 of tier 1. Are we planning to be in tier 2 next year then in 21, 22?
It just depends on how well our implementation goes this year, especially since the initial part is virtual. We have to look at our data and review the information at the end of the year to make that determination. But if we're able to move through the tier and achieve the objectives, then yes, we would move to the next tier.
Okay.
Did we achieve our objectives last year? with the
We
other
did.
phase? We did.
We did.
Okay,
We did.
great. Okay, thank you. Everyone ready to call the question? Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay, passes 5-0. Thank you. Moving on. Dr. Breggy, are we at reports now?
Yes. We just have a very quick report, which you'll be very relieved to see. Hopefully you can see my screen. Wait, it's not the right one. Just really quickly, I appreciate the time that you provided the think tank because they have worked so hard, and their recommendations are filled with integrity and really from their hearts because they really do care about the community. So I just want to thank you for all the time that you've given our committee and especially our special guests today. As you know, it's all on our website, but the two plans are up and running for our ILC and live at BHUSD. Just the latest numbers where we're at as of today, after talking to Mr. Seaman, that total of 484 applications, just over 200 at the high school, about 100 at the middle school, and then 170 at both of our elementary schools combined. And I do want to, and Mrs. Hacker, I appreciate that you had made mention of this earlier as well about the MOU and the work that's going on. We're working very well with our union, and the bargaining team for BHEA is working very hard. And over their summer, I know many of them are starting to work on transitioning to distance learning. And so, but they're making time for this bargaining team and our sessions. And we certainly appreciate that. You know, the MOU, we get a lot of people that are just not really sure about why that's happening. Why is this a bargaining session? And this is required. This is all of our union labor groups that we, if there's a change in working conditions, that this is a requirement that we meet and we talk about what those changes to the work environment are and what the impact is. I do want to say that, you know, a lot of people, when they immediately think of contract negotiations, they think that this is a money issue, and that's just couldn't be farther from the truth. It's never come up once. It's not a money issue. It's really about working together and having conversations about providing the best educational experience, the best professional experience for our teachers, the location, which you've heard a lot about tonight, equipment, tools, the professional development to make sure that we're implementing this with the highest level of fidelity, and then just the overall bell schedule, which you heard about today. And we are on our way. We're making really good progress. And it's really helpful to have the comments from parents and from teachers that helps move us along. And as I mentioned, you know, we are staying in a very positive frame of mind, and we think that that we're going to be able to share some information very soon. And I know that people are going to be waiting for this information, and we'll be very happy to share that. Another thing that I want to share is that what we're getting ready for is providing teachers with the necessary tools that they need to be successful in the classroom. And when people start asking the question, you know, what's different this time? One of those things is just the equipping teachers with what they need. And we've learned a lot about what happened in the spring. And so we know that teachers need some additional tools in order to better enhance and improve their own ability to provide the instruction through having headsets, having a separate webcam. There are teachers that just, you know, I was an Algebra 2 teacher. It's very difficult to do that here at this laptop. A webcam is an opportunity for teachers that need one, is to be able to move that around in a setting. If you're doing a lab or doing another experience where you need to step away from the computer, having that additional monitor so that you might have a Zoom meeting, and then you may need to be able to see what's happening with My View Board, or just having that other screen that's available. And so these are things that teachers have provided us with feedback. We know this is kind of a baseline. Our teachers in some different areas will need some additional things, and we're willing and we're open to those conversations. When Zoom came up last March and April, there was some discussion about from some teachers saying, why can't we use Zoom, because it has more features. And when I was talking to Ethan Smith about that, I said, look, if this is a better product and teachers are going to use it, and there are more ability to control what's happening in a virtual room like you would in a physical classroom, then we're going to be interested in purchasing that. And we've been able to collect that information time and time again. It's one of the reasons why we moved to Zoom as a board and cabinet, because of the additional ability to be able to put people in groups and in rooms. And we did that a lot with the strategic plan. So as you know, that was on the agenda tonight, because we want to prepare our teachers and share with them that these are tools that our teachers have asked for, and we want to make sure that we are able to provide them and get them set up for the very first week of school. So next steps for us, we've already talked about the think tank recommendations, so I won't go into those again. The social emotional wellness group, that is still a critical part of our work, is the social emotional plan for each school, each grade level, each teacher. And so we'll bring that information back to you in another meeting. But that is a critical piece, not only now in distance learning, but also when we start to transition back into the classroom. I can tell you from personal experience of being in our classrooms and setting them up and having tape places and 10 desks in a certain place, it's pretty shocking. And so we have a lot of work to do in the social emotional wellness area to not only prepare kids for distance learning, but also prepare them for that transition, because coming back to school will not look the same as it did from the year before. And then we were going to put this all together. The assessment from the high school, we'll bring this back to the board and share some of how the recommendations have been put into place. And we're going to put together a very big physical reopening plan that we will share with the board over the next coming weeks. And so we look forward to that opportunity. And that's it.
Thanks, Dr. Brecky. Questions from the board members? Mr. Margot?
No, I don't have anything right now.
Mr. Spitz? Mrs. Walker-Schuman?
Nothing from me.
Mrs. Marcus?
No, I enjoyed the presentation. Thank you.
I don't have any questions as well. Thank you. So do we have any student board member? Let me,
yes,
my agenda moved. Just a minute, please. Rashani, do you have a board report?
Yes,
a
I
student
do.
board report? Please, this is your time now.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone had a good weekend and a nice start of your weeks. To follow up with the Mercer Island letter that we went over, I think it was last meeting, I'd like to say that I reached out to the authors of the letter, getting input on why they thought of the idea and what steps they took in the process. The reason why Mercer Island School District wrote the letter in the first place was because they observed that Mercer Island community wasn't doing a lot to actively address systemic racism or other injustices. They wrote the letter advocating for more conversation to be had within their schools. I'm going to create a Google form that will ask our students some questions in order to acquire knowledge on where BHUSD stands in the realm of actively addressing systemic racism and other injustices, now that I was able to speak with the student board member at Mercer Island High School. I will hopefully have the form ready to be sent out in about a day or two, so be on the lookout for that email. Other than that, thank you and good night.
Thank you for that report. Any questions? Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to educational services.
I move approval of subscription model for access to virtual computing for BHHS elective courses requiring AutoCAD and Adobe Creative Suite.
I'll second.
Okay, discussion? I have a question about this. How many students are part of this? It didn't say that. I couldn't catch that on the narrative.
We have about 560 students. By the way, this is David.
Sorry, I'm not hearing.
Can you hear me?
Can hear you.
Yes.
Okay. We have about 560 students enrolled in these electives.
Thank you for clarifying.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand. I think I see everybody. Yeah, I see everybody. Thank you. That's 5-0. It carries. Moving on to planning and facilities, please. May I have a motion? I'll make the motion to approve the amendment. I'll make the motion to approve the amendment number 31 to agreement with DLR Architects for architectural services for the modernization of Beverly Hills High School. I need a second, please. Mrs. Marcus? Okay. Thank you for that. Tristan, I'm going to give that to Ms. Marcus just because I remember her speaking over me. Is that okay? Thank you. Okay, any discussion, please? Board members? No?
Yes.
Mr. Margot?
Yeah, I had asked for clarification that this was a true up for the high school project.
Can you explain what that term is? Because not everybody might be familiar watching with what a true up is. So I appreciate that we know what that is, but let's explain that, please.
Well, that's why CR is here, I think.
Did you want me to answer, Mr. Margot?
Anybody? Oh, there you are, Don.
Yes.
Yes, please.
When we have an estimate, particularly when the projects come out of DSA, there's an estimate that is adjoined with that price, and the architect's contract is based on a sliding scale percentage for each of the phases of development of the drawings, but it's all tied to a budget estimate. When the final contract and final payment to the architect is based on the final construction cost. So the true up would be from the original estimate that they're building against up until DSA. We come out of DSA, we bid the job. In this case, we have more than one GMAX, guaranteed maximum price components. And by contract, as we have a fixed cost approved by the board, then we bring the architect's fee percentages up to that price. So the true up is to the current cost.
Thank you, Don.
Okay, any further questions from the board? No? Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand or say aye, and I can see you.
Aye.
Thank you. That's 5-0. Carries. We can
I
move
would
on to
like
the
to
next.
make a motion to award for the award of the bid 1920-011, the Horace Mann School Shade Structure Installation Project.
I'll second.
I'll second. Okay, thank you, Mrs. Walker-Schuman. Thank you, Mrs. Marcus. Any discussion? No? Okay. All those in favor, please raise your hand or say aye, or both.
Aye.
Thank you. That's 5-0. It carries. Moving on, please. I'll make the motion. Ratification of an agreement with AJ Fisk Corporation for enclosing a space within the Beverly Vista Middle School Library to create a new learning environment. May I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Thank you. Okay, any discussion on that, board members? No? Okay. All those in favor, please raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. That's 5-0. The motion carries.
Move approval
like
to
to make
purchase
a motion.
laptop devices from Dell Inc. to replace teacher devices that are at end of life.
Thank you,
I'll
Mrs.
second the motion.
Walker-Schuman, and thank you, Mrs. Marcus. Any discussion?
I have a question.
Okay, so somebody said I have a question.
I have a
think. Oh, Mr. Kashanian. Okay, Mr. Kashanian first, and then Mrs. Marcus.
Okay, I'm just wondering, it says here that they're providing 50 laptops for about $75,000. And I'm just wondering why it's so expensive for 50 laptops.
Well, so this is David D'Amico again. We spend approximately $1,300 on the device, and then there are some things that we need to include with that to manage them. So we provide devices for teachers that we expect to last a full 4 years, and so that's why the laptops are cost what they do. I understand that you could go out and get one sort of in the commercial or sort of personal computing space that would be less expensive, but we try to buy devices that have combination of compute power, durability, and the ability to kind of deliver on the things that we expect teachers to do. So the components are a little bit more upgraded than they might be for just a personal device.
Thank you, Mr. Kashani. That was a great question. Mrs. Marcus?
Well, I remember when we were discussing buying laptops for Mr. Margot, and we talked about the fact that we were buying the students one-to-one devices, do you recall? And we found out that we were able to get them even the product at a better price, if you recall. I wondered if we are getting the best price possible for these laptops with all the bells and whistles that you're talking about, Mr. D'Amico. Are we getting the best price possible?
I think we are getting, we always look for the best price. We always use a government contract when we purchase these devices. So the vendor is obligated to provide us with the very best price that any institution, any government institution would get for the same device. And so I have high confidence that these devices are a good value.
And
I have a question
the
too.
second question I have is, you're buying 50 laptops. We are sort of on a rotating basis every year to purchase laptops because obviously if we have more than 50 teachers and with the administration, are we assuming that we're going to be buying some in the next 4 years again? I mean, every 4 years, this year, next year, and so on.
Yes, what we try to do, and this is something that I talked about in my study session with you, is we trying to kind of understand what's in our inventory, mark our inventory based on the device age and other things that help us predict or forecast what the replacement's going to be for student devices and teacher devices. And so we have all of our devices now in inventory, in a electronic inventory, and we are scheduling replacement in in year-over-year budgets so that we aren't left with a situation where everybody's devices are falling apart all at the same time, and we're buying 280 devices all at once. So we're 15 devices, or excuse me, 50 devices is about it's about 20% of our inventory for teachers. That would be about right in any given year.
Thank you. And one more question. We've just recently asked all the students at all the different schools to return their devices. How did we do with that return? And were we able to recollect most of the devices? How are we doing on the inventory of those devices that we're supposed to return?
Great question. We have a lot of families have been really good about communicating with me or with us. We are collecting. I think we still have probably across the district, all 4 schools, 500 to 600 devices out, which sounds like a lot, but we have kids taking summer courses at the high school, and a lot of them have communicated with me, and they're finishing up summer courses. we have families that are traveling, and a lot of them have reached out to me, and so I'm confident that that people are, every day I get 3 or 4 or 5 emails from people that have gotten our communication, that are scheduling time outside of when we said, here, come and return it on this date, to get the devices back. And we've started re-imaging and cleaning the devices that we have collected so that we'll be ready to redeploy them for the start of school.
Thank you. Okay.
I just had a quick question. So this was part of the plan going forward. This is not something that needs to happen because of COVID, right? These computers?
No. These are just computers that need to be replaced. They were scheduled to be replaced.
Okay.
And so, yeah, this doesn't have anything to do with.
And these 500 that are 500 or 600 that are still outstanding, just because you just mentioned it. I mean, the reason that these computers were being collected was because they needed to kind of be reset for deployment for online learning, correct?
Well, what we're trying to do is change the way we manage the devices. So just a very small example is that the way the devices are currently managed is if I hand Yanni a laptop, he has to log into it before he leaves the campus, before it will work at home. And we don't want that to be the case. If kids are going to be learning at home, we want them to be able to log in the minute they open it at home. We don't want them to have to sit somewhere on campus and log in to authenticate to the network. So we're making some changes to the policies on the devices. We're making some changes to how we manage them. We're enrolling them in a management system so that we can assist people remotely, so they don't have to come in and get help. So those are the kinds of things we're doing with those devices.
So it's kind of important, though, for those 500 or 600. I mean, that's 500 or 600 students that need to get their computers back with all of those upgrades made before school starts. Right. So there is some kind of urgency for parents to try and figure out how to get those computers back to us.
It helps us, obviously we'd like to complete that project. If kids for some reason don't get the computers back by the first day of school, they'll still be able to participate just like they were participating last March, but we will have to get those devices back so that we can touch them and turn them around for the kids. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay, any further questions? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Thank you, that passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda.
I will vote for the approval of change order number 2 to the fire alarm rerouting and additional work related to oil well by Edgar Garza Construction at Beverly Hills High School.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you for those motions. Any discussion, please? No? Okay, all those in favor? Wait, before I go there, Mr. Blake, did you have anything to add? I see that you're still here with us. No? Okay, great. All those in favor, please raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. The motion carries 5-0. Okay, moving on to communication from board members.
Well,
Oh, we have another item.
Nope, we have one more. That's right. I need a motion, please.
I'll move acceptance as complete fire alarm rerouting and additional work related to oil well by Edgar Garza Construction at Beverly Hills High School, and authorize a notice of completion and release of retention.
I'll second.
I will second. Okay. Any discussion, please? None?
So this is now actually E and F are tied together. Is that correct, Mr. Blake? That was.
Yes,
E and
Mrs.
F.
Marcus.
Yes.
These both actually are like refunds, right? This is a reduction in the total expense, both of these items?
Yes, ma'am.
Excellent. Nice job, guys.
Nice job, Sierra.
Okay, any other questions or comments, please? I'm going to call for the question. All those in favor, please raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
That's 5-0. Thank you, board members. The motion carries. And I believe we have one more item on the agenda under facilities. May I please have a motion?
No, I think we're done.
No, that was it.
That's
We're
it.
done.
I'm sorry. Yes, that is the last one. I apologize. My screen keeps flipping on me. Okay, so now we are on to communication from board members. And let me just bring this up. I had asked for this board policy to be discussed. Yes.
I pulled this from the agenda before we approved it. So this is not, this isn't part of the agenda for today anymore.
You know what? I wasn't aware of that. I'm sorry. I actually asked for that to be discussed. So
I understand that, but
That's
it
why I
wasn't.
voted no on it.
Yeah.
But it,
Sorry.
but it was approved. The agenda was approved 4-1 without item 13A. So that's going to have to be for another day.
Okay, so I'm going to ask that I be brought back at the next board meeting. You know, I flipped through, when I was reading the statements of getting all the statements and organized, the ones that came in late, I was flipping through the agenda, so it's difficult for me sometimes to see what you're all approving, but you know, I think that for board comments, this is unusual. It's the first time that this has happened since I've been on the board. So I want this, that this would be canceled by another board member, 2 board members, actually. I've never seen that happen. So I'm gonna ask that that be brought back, and everyone else watching, the other 2 board members, I'm gonna ask that you please support this at the next board meeting for discussion, because it needs to be discussed. And
May I make a suggestion, Mrs. Hacker?
yes, please.
On the next agenda, it's a discussion item. I don't think that it should be under communication from board members. It should be above that.
Yes, that's why I asked for it to be pulled.
So when I set the agenda and I did not see the final agenda, I had asked for that item to be
Next
posted.
time.
Yes, so please, Dr. Breggy, will you make a note of that so that it gets posted?
Listed under
accurately?
board policy.
Yeah.
And also, if we could get some staff input and some backup as to what's the goal of the discussion, that would be great. I think we'd all be better prepared for a discussion with a little background.
I offered that. There was no time for staff to, they never, you know, I offered to, I asked for it to be brought up. And so I asked if there was, that I suggested that I wanted to speak to staff to give them a heads up. Nobody ever got back to me on that. So I know that they're very busy. They're very busy, and we were I know that they were scrambling on Friday, and I just, you know, I was actually going to have that discussion today with those recommendations for staff to come back. So it's a shame that we can't have that discussion today, but it's fine.
Okay. So since it's board member comments, Mr. Margot, would you like to start?
No, it's been a long evening. I don't think we're going to add much to the conversation. I do want to thank Dr. Breggy's staff and the Return to Learn once again for bringing that to the public's attention. To hopefully people will understand how hard we're all working. The board has had more meetings in the month of July than I've ever had in 9 years in a single month. And it was out of necessity, not out of want. So I thank all of my colleagues and staff for continuing to fight the good fight and to trying to make sure that our fall starts very effectively and smoothly. And to the parents out there, thank you for being patient with us as we put these ducks in a row and get started. So, and then Mr. Kashanian, thank you for looking into that Mercer Island thing. I appreciate your work on that. Have a good week, everybody.
Mr. Sitz.
Have a good evening, everybody.
Mrs. Walker-Schuman.
I just want to thank the task force again for a tremendous contribution in their work. I think this is a really good jumping off point. There's a lot more to do, but I'm happy with you know, what was produced. And I do kind of want to circle back to the beginning in public comment. There was a letter that was sent with some very personal information about one of our staff members, and it made me really uncomfortable. And I have to just put this out there because I think, you know, we can't create an environment where people are afraid to come forward and say, I found out I had, you know, positive antibodies for COVID. In this environment, no one's going to want to come forward and say it. And I know Mrs. Crane, I know because my student was in her class. I know when she was sick and she didn't know, and none of us knew that this was something to be concerned about. She didn't find out until the end of May, beginning of June, that she had tested positive for the antibodies. So I really take umbrage at criticism that she should have known or done something differently, because there's no way anyone in this community at that time knew what it was that we were facing. And I think it's really, it's a difficult time, and I get that everyone is nervous, and I get that everyone is worried, and I get that everyone wants the best for their kids and the best for the teachers and for everyone to be healthy. But I would really just like to remind this community, we're all under a tremendous amount of pressure, and we are doing our darndest. So if we could just turn up the volume on the kindness and the patience instead of the judgment, I think it'd be really helpful. That's all I got.
So I would just now ask Mrs. Marcus, do you have anything else to say?
No, I just again want to repeat two things. One, the great work that the committee has done on the return to learn. I'm very impressed by the work. I was also very impressed, Mr. Kashanian, that what you did to take and write the letter to locate the people that wrote the letter back in New York or wherever that was, and take some really important strides to find out why and how and what caused that to be written. I really thought that was a very, very astute thing to do, and I want to compliment you for that. And to all the rest of you, I want to say stay safe, stay well, and let's hope that we can accomplish a memorandum of understanding this week.
Thank you, Mrs. Marcus. Dr. Breggy, I'm going to ask that board policy, the board policy that was taken off the agenda, be brought to the beginning of the agenda at the next meeting after your report, please.
After my report?
After superintendent's report and student board members report, after that section, if possible.
Okay.
Thank you. So that, I can watch it from the top, because it's very difficult for me to switch frames as I'm watching public comment come in. So thank you for that. I just want to make that recommendation. And I want to thank the think tank, of course, for being here tonight and all the work that went into this meeting. Thank you. And
happy birthday to Pam.
Happy birthday to Pam. Yes. I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
Happy birthday, Pam. Have a good night, everyone.
Pam. Good night.
Happy
Thank
birthday.
you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.